Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching second and final part of What If Good Naruto Found Uzumaki Clan Secrets. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
I'll be back in Konoha in 2 days. While the members of the group he was escorting were doing the same, Naruto was in the middle of unpacking the things he would need for the night. He allowed his thoughts to wander as he did so. It had been a strange week for Naruto before he left. Naruto had more free time than he could manage because the village was preparing for the exams. He hadn't trained with Sarutobi, Guy, or Zabuza all week. Sarutobi was in charge of planning the entire event. Guy was likely considering nominating his team for the exam because he had increased their training. Zabuza had merely informed Naruto that he would be too busy to collaborate with him for some time. He had wandered to the academy one day at lunchtime. He met Haku and Iruka there. They asked him to stay and assist with the class after realizing he had nothing to do. He also found out why Zabuza intended to be so busy. He had been asked to assist in proctoring the exams, as had Haku. In order to eliminate blatant cheaters, Haku had been allowed to perform his 100.nin routine during the first section. The second and third portions would be Zabuza's responsibility. He was now familiarizing himself with the Forest of Death by touring it with the other proctors for the second part. Since Haku claimed to have never seen Zabuza, ecstatic. After explaining the 3 parts to Naruto, Sarutobi advised him not to discuss them with anyone who wasn't already aware of them. He was essentially forbidden from telling any of his fellow genin. For the remainder of the lunch break, the 3 continued to converse. Some of the students were appropriately amazed when they realized Naruto was the Hokage's apprentice. For some hands. On practice, the class went outdoors. When Naruto emerged outside, the students flocked to him and demanded that he demonstrate a jutsu. Naruto used some of the most fundamental jutsu he had learned, outside of the academy's curriculum, with Iruka's consent. When a Suiden jutsu went wrong and soaked Iruka, it was the high point of his performance. The students were given an impromptu lesson in not evaluating someone's qualities solely on the basis of their teacher. Even though he had been training with some of the best shinobi in the village, Iruka was able to catch up to Naruto, hog-tie him, and drag him back to the training area, where he posed with his captive, looking very much like a hunter showing off his kill. Naruto fled from the sopping wet Iruka. At Naruto's expense, amusement was enjoyed. Naruto couldn't deny that going on the double date with Hinata was one of the best choices he had ever made. They had all 4 gone on a picnic. When he awkwardly questioned Hinata about it, he was still a little taken aback by the smile she gave him. The presence of Ayame and Haku was beneficial not only because it was their suggestion but also because it maintained a fun and lighthearted atmosphere. Since some of the interactions between Haku and Ayame mirrored those between him and Hinata, Naruto had found it odd to observe how well they got along. Perhaps Hinata was more than just a friend to him. Naruto gave a forceful shake of his head. "This is not the right time. I have a mission." His escort mission had been a little nerve-wracking so far. He was determined not to make a mistake because it was his first time going out on his own. Some of the Chunin sensei had been annoyed by his presence when he had first arrived at the outpost. They were irritated that there had only been one escort sent, and that escort was a rookie genin, younger than the majority of the people he would be escorting. When a Chunin requested to view the documents designating Naruto as their escort, that somewhat changed. He perused them and was overcome with astonishment upon seeing them. Like the others, he had interpreted Naruto's role as their escort as a subtle jab that Konoha didn't value them enough to send a more knowledgeable guide. But the Chunin couldn't keep it to himself when he read the passage identifying the Sandaime Hokage as Naruto's sensei. Everyone was therefore observing Naruto and assessing him. They set out for Konoha after they were convinced that they had not been deceived after all. The size of Naruto's group was small to moderate. The teams were mostly from Suna, but some were from Kusa. Other shinobi from Konoha would accompany foreign teams. However, he couldn't figure out why he kept seeing one Suna team. As far as he could tell, the 3 genin were related. For the life of him, Naruto was unable to identify the various items that each of the 3 of them was carrying on their backs. He only knew that, based on the clacking sounds, whatever the older boy was carrying had moving parts. Nevertheless, Naruto couldn't help but chuckle to himself at the older shinobi's attire. A black jumpsuit on top of the awful face paint. Wearing a full body black jumpsuit in the desert was not going to be one of Naruto's many foolish choices, if he could avoid it. Naturally, the hood's creation of cat ears didn't do much to add to the intimidating appearance of the outfit. What was he going to do without fainting from the heat? Naruto felt uneasy around the eldest member, a kunoichi whose name had been revealed as Tamari. Tamari exuded a great deal of confidence. Naruto found it almost impossible to avoid looking at her because of something about her. Perhaps it was because she shared his personality, or perhaps it was because she was a blonde with blue eyes like him. Naruto was genuinely frightened by the final genin. The redhead's eyes widened as Naruto first arrived at the outpost, and he started to clutch his head while muttering to himself. The genin had been staring at him ever since with a nearly hungry. The sensei of the trio approached him. Uzumaki-san, the other Chunin and I have put together tonight's watch schedule. Is there anything we should know about? Yeah. I'll be having some Kage Bunshin doing some chakra control exercises for a while. Tree walking, about 20, maybe 30 feet away from the center of camp, so I don't disturb anyone. Naruto's ability to control his chakras was one issue that plagued him throughout his shinobi career. Sarutobi had surmised that Naruto's chakra coils were incredibly pliable because of the Kyuubi's presence. The intended effect would be doubled or even tripled by any exercise that would increase his chakra reserves. His coils grew larger every day even if he never used chakra during a training session. Therefore, if he skipped too many control exercises, his control would suffer. He therefore instructed his clones to conduct control exercises using whatever they could find after his group disbanded for the evening. The others had questioned him about it the first time he had done it. It was true enough that he pretended it was a medical condition he had had since birth. It wasn't life-threatening, but if he ignored it, it would severely impair his chakra control. They had only requested that he notify them when he planned to dispatch his clones, and they appeared to accept it. It seemed that his knowledge of Kage Bunshin had been dismissed due to the fact that he was a student of Kage. This time, Naruto allowed them to believe that instead of correcting them as he usually would have. A ninja's best weapon was deception, and what better deception than allowing people to draw conclusions about you? After nodding and turning to tell the others, Baki, the Chunin, had an epiphany. Uzumaki-san, has my student Gaara, has he done anything to you? Gaara? Oh, the one with the gourd. Nah, he hasn't done much that I've noticed, outside of watching me like a hawk and making a lot of comments about wanting my blood. Trust me, if he had done anything to you, you would know it. I would advise you to tread carefully around him. He's not exactly stable. I'll keep that in mind, though I don't understand why you are giving me the warning. It's simple. Without you, none of us can enter the village for the exams. Therefore, it is in the best interest to all of us that you arrive at the village alive and well. Fair enough. So when is my shift for guard duty? 10 till 2. Naruto was concealed in the trees, midway through his guard shift, at around midnight. He could hear the sounds of his clones exercising control in the distance. He stiffened at the sound of rustling close by. Who's there? Gaara emerged on a nearby branch and gazed intently at Naruto, saying, Uzumaki-san. Gaara-san, what is it? My mother calls for your blood. Sand flew straight for Naruto from the gourd on Gaara's back. A swift kawarimi was the only thing that prevented Naruto from colliding with the sand, which abruptly arced in the direction of Naruto's new location. He has been carrying that, then. He carries it around as if it were not there, even though that much sand must weigh a ton. And why in hell is he attacking me with it? He hasn't made a single hand seal that I have witnessed. Naruto lost because of his musing. He barely avoided getting caught in the sand when he regained his composure and used kawarimi. The tree he had been on was uprooted and sent to the ground when the sand collided with it. If the shouting was any indication, the ensuing noise roused the rest of the camp. Naruto started guiding Gaara farther from the camp. Baki arrived on the scene first, followed by Tamari and Konkuro. What the hell is going on here? Gaara? Oh shit. Oi, Blondie. What did you do to make Gaara attack? Shouted Konkuro. Hell if I know, I was just... crap, kawarimi. I was on guard duty, and he comes out of nowhere, saying his mother wants my blood and attacks me. I don't even know your mother. Tamari let out an irritated grunt as the others started to move to locate the source of the disturbance. For Kami's sake, fight back. It's your only hope, although you still won't stand a chance against Gaara. I'm under orders not to attack any of you, for any reason. Oh. Wah. Naruto was struck squarely in the chest by Gaara's sand, which caused him to fall backward. A number of trees behind him sent him through his body. With more sand flying at him, he fell to the ground. Sabaku-Q, yelled Gaara. Most of Naruto's body was now covered in rapidly spreading sand. Now you will die. Gaara, stop. You kill him, and none of us will be able to take the Chunin exams. Not to mention what could happen when the Hokage finds out his student was killed by someone he was escorting. Silence. None of you can stop me. I will have his blood. From the waist down, Naruto was now securely encased. He still had some range of motion in his upper body, but it was ebbing away over time. Whoa. My fingers and arms aren't flexible enough for jutsu. This is my only chance, since this is unquestionably a life-threatening situation. Let's hope I am truly strong enough to use it. Hey, psycho. Let me go, or you'll regret it. The term, psycho, made Gaara growl. You will die. I had hoped for more of a challenge from the student of one of the strongest shinobi alive. It's a pity. Uzumaki Hajutsu. Yomi no Oikawa. Acheron, Naruto's hands erupted in twin streams of water. Naruto observed the jutsu in action as they made their way to their target. Although Naruto couldn't really see it in the dark, the water didn't physically differ from ordinary water. The sound it produced was different. The sound of the water's wake sounded like people sobbing and wailing as it rushed through the air. Everyone in the room was sufficiently shivered, though Gaara was shivered for a different reason. Then he was struck by the jutsu. Around Gaara, the world turned black. There was nothing around him that he could see or hear, and then he was back in Suna. He saw himself as a young boy, sobbing as his uncle Yoshimaru started attempting to murder him. Even with Gaara's attitude right now, he didn't want to watch this. It revealed things he had successfully suppressed for years. Sadly, he was unable to turn away. He was still facing the scene, which went on unbroken in front of him if he turned. Another scene started after that one ended. This time, it depicts Tamari and Konkuro attempting to speak with him before he scares them off. In the following, they attempted to entice him to join them for a game, but the same outcome was achieved. A number of similar scenes played, each indicating that more time had elapsed between them. The pictures kept coming, and Gaara was starting to feel overwhelmed. He wouldn't have cared if he had been confronted with each picture individually. But seeing Gaara, the highlights of his life without end, beginning with Yoshimaru, was overwhelming him, and he started crying. Then there was a dramatic change in the landscape. If he had to guess, he was in Konoha based on the greenery, but he was no longer anywhere he knew. A festival was evident from the decorations. Then he saw a group of people who appeared to be mostly drunk villagers running past, followed by what appeared to be a younger version of their guide. The boy was in terrible shape when Anbu and a man who must have been the Hokage broke up the mob because he was unable to flee. Gaara moved apprehensively. On occasion, the Suna villagers had attempted the same thing with him, but the sand had prevented them. But there was no such defense for this boy. Younger versions of their guide, Uzumaki, were now featured in the scenes. He would attempt to engage in everyday activities, like playing in a park, but would either be ejected or excluded. The fact that the villagers called Naruto a demon, just as soon as people did, was one thing that surprised Gaara. Is it possible that does he resemble me? The dam then exploded, and Gaara started crying for the first time since his uncle's passing. Gaara's sand had gone crazy and destroyed everything it could when Naruto's jutsu connected. Naruto was left on the ground, struggling to breathe, as the sand that had surrounded him had scattered and joined the rest of it in wreaking havoc. Because of their familiarity with Gaara, Baki, Tamari, and Konkuro were able to dodge safely. They could hear the other Chunin in the background instructing their teams to remain inside the camp. All of a sudden, the sand ceased to do harm and instead began to flail wildly, as though it were caught in the wind. Then there was a cry. To their astonishment, they discovered Gaara sobbing like a person half his age when they searched for the source. Uncertain of what had happened to him or what to do, they exchanged glances. Konkuro's mouth dropped open. He's crying, actually crying. What the hell's going on here? Baki was taken aback and asked, what kind of jutsu could have brought Gaara to tears? If Naruto, this boy, could have an impact on someone like Gaara. You might want to go over to him. He really needs you right now. The trio of Suna nin pivoted. Naruto had drugged himself to lean against a tree that was, for the most part, still standing. Baki returned his attention to his two pupils. Go see to Gaara. I'll tend to our escort. Baki hurried over and gave Naruto a quick examination. Well, you're pretty beat up. On the other hand, you're still alive and in one piece, which is nothing short of amazing. I do believe that you are the first person to fight Gaara and live to tell. Should I be honored? I suppose you should. As I said, you are the first person to survive a fight against him. Even the Kazekage is wary of dealing with him. That said, what the hell did you do to him? Imagine the worst moments in your life being played back to back without end. Memories you never wanted to see the light of day ever again. That is what I did to him. He's a Suna shinobi. Such a jutsu shouldn't affect him. Baki-san, that may be true, but he is still human. Has someone you deeply cared for ever died in front of you? Not just comrades, I'm talking family too. Of course that has happened to me. I was with my father and grandfather when they died of combat injuries. My grandmother died about 4 months later, and I was there for that as well. I was about 8. Well, you would have seen them dying in front of you once more, and yourself back then. The jutsu shows you every moment in your life that would cause you to feel sorrow and regret. Contact with the water alone weakens your mental defenses, making you more vulnerable to the memories. Well, if you put it that way, I don't think I would be able to stand it, either. Part of the shinobi lifestyle leads to having a lot of unpleasant memories. On their own, each one could be dealt with, but seeing your life play out in front of you like that can't be good. The two turn to face the siblings as they hear muffled cries. Gaara was crying and repeating what sounded like, "I'm sorry," while holding Tamari and Konkuro in a bone-crushing embrace. The two older siblings alternated between instinctively wanting to console their brother and fearing for their lives. "Kid, let's leave them be. I'll take you back to camp, and then I'll finish up your watch shift." The following morning was a little awkward. Around noon, the group dispersed so that Naruto could rest and the two older Baki students could sleep. It seems that both of them had stayed up with Gaara. The other Chunin appeared to be aware of what had actually happened, but Naruto was unsure of what Baki had told everyone. Naruto's mind kept returning to last night as he strolled along. When he hit Gaara with the river, something strange had occurred. Naruto wasn't sure that should have happened, but he had witnessed the same things that Gaara had. Nothing he had read about the Acheron had ever mentioned memory sharing between the target and the user. Did it have anything to do with him, or was it just something they didn't discuss? Man, I would give anything to speak with someone who truly understood how these rivers operate. A voice said, "Uzumaki-san," from behind him. He turned to see Gaara. Naruto was alert and asked, "What can I do for you three?" "I wish to speak to you about what happened last night." "Alright. What do you want to talk about?" "Under the effects of your jutsu, I saw some things. Is there any truth to what I saw?" "I could say no, but I'd be lying. I also saw parts of your life, and I know we have quite a bit in common." "Perhaps we do, even more than you think. I, too, carry a demon within me, the Ichibi no Shukaku." Naruto's gaze widened. "Yeah, you're right, we do share more things than I initially believed, just mine." "Kyuubi no Kitsune, if your village's history is anything to go by," Gaara said. "Yes. On the day of the attack, I was born. Yondaime died in the process of sealing it into me. But your Yondaime is supposed to have killed the Kyuubi. How could the Kyuubi be defeated if the Shukaku, the least powerful of the Biju, could only be sealed away? I assume that your medical condition is Kyuubi?" "Yes. Sensei enacted a law that, under penalty of death, prohibited almost everyone from speaking the truth. I, the active Hokage, and anybody else I permit are the only ones who can talk about it. For everyone who wasn't present during the attack or was too young to understand what actually happened, Kyuubi's death is reality. Tell me, how are you viewed in your village? Do they consider you a hero because of what transpired?" "Very difficult. For the majority of the village, I am merely an annoyance that must be put up with. I'm not a hero, even to those whose opinions are important to me. They see me as the 12-year-old genin who aspires to be Hokage, Uzumaki Naruto. Unless I've accomplished something worthy, I don't really want to be viewed as a hero, and I'm not one. I never kept what I carry a secret. Everyone in Suna is aware of it and is afraid of me." "Why did Shukaku seal you in? Was Suna being attacked?" "No, Shukaku had been sealed in a teapot for decades before it was sealed into me. Suna has been losing money and missions to other villages for some time now. Our forces are therefore comparable in size to the majority of minor villages, but we are of a caliber that is commensurate with a major village. Suna required an unbeatable shinobi as a weapon. Before I was even born, Shukaku was sealed into me on the Kage's orders. It's peculiar. Although our circumstances were different, desperation led to the creation of both you and me. I never thought I'd find someone just like me. I believed that I was the only person in the world. I understand why you might feel that way. Nevertheless, your sister and brother wanted you around. You pushed them away, but why? My uncle was the first person you witnessed attempting to murder me last night. Before that night, he looked after me for the first 6 years of my life. After that, I was certain that if I allowed Tamari and Konkuro to approach too closely, they would follow suit." As they made their way to Konoha, Gaara and Naruto talked about their personal lives. When his receptionist knocked on the door, Sarutobi was in his office back in Konoha, taking a lunch break. "Hokage. Sama, Hyuga Hiyashi wishes to speak with you." "Send him in." Heishi bowed to Sarutobi as he entered. Sandane. Sama. Heishi.san. Sit down, please. I hope it's okay if I eat my lunch while we're conversing. I won't have another chance until this evening if I don't eat now. Don't worry, Hokage. Sama. I appreciate you seeing me so quickly. It is not a bother, as you stated. What can I do to help you now? Your student is involved. I want to talk to you about some issues I have with him. So much for a casual, light conversation. Sarutobi put down his lunch. Heishi, you of all people should be able to recognize, he said. I know very well, Hokage. Sama, that the boy is not his tenant. I would have taken action to keep him away from my daughter if I had ever felt differently. So, what exactly is wrong with him? Uzumaki.san is not a problem for me. The Yondaimi's seal is what worries me. Please, continue. I don't dispute that the Yondaime was fantastic with seals, but when he created that seal, he was rushing, and he was even more hurried when he applied it to Naruto.kun. Despite his expertise, he was still a human being and could make mistakes, particularly when under duress. The Yondaime's seal has held for nearly 13 years now, Sarutobi retorted sternly. There will be no escape for the Kyuubi. Why are you bringing this up at this time? An event does not necessarily never occur just because it hasn't happened yet. Both of us are aware that seals lose their stability with age if they are not cared for. To the best of my knowledge, no seal master has ever examined Naruto's seal in great detail. That is unacceptable for a seal as significant as Naruto. Kun's. I see your point, sighed Sarutobi. What you say is accurate, and you provided logical evidence to support it. I'm not sure why I never considered it myself. Maybe it's because you and the boy are too close. Instead of the prisoner is seen by the entire village. By ignoring the tenant's presence while observing the boy, you are at the other extreme. I've heard this argument more than once. So, Heishi, where do you put yourself? I prefer to consider myself to be in the middle. I can see the boy, but I also know that he is dangerous. Excellent. I'll dispatch Jiraiya. According to what I understand, Yondaime gave him some unique scrolls made especially for that seal's upkeep. Is that satisfactory to you? Indeed, Hokage. Sama, I appreciate you listening. Yes, well, I appreciate you visiting me privately rather than bringing up the matter at a council meeting. Only Kami knows what might have occurred. You're welcome. Could you update me on the progress of young Uzumaki, Sen's training? Why is my apprentice suddenly attracting attention? My daughter thinks she should spend time with him. I just want to learn more about him so that I can make an informed decision about whether or not he would be a good fit for my daughter. And the real reason? Sarutobi raised an eyebrow. Hokage. Sama, you hurt me. That was my true motivation, though I must confess that I was intrigued by the shinobi who is currently vying to be your successor. To tell the truth, I have no idea what he is really capable of. To the best of my knowledge, he is the first individual to receive training in ninja village leadership prior to assuming office. Trial and error has taught everyone else. If he succeeds, will he be a capable leader? I have a sneaking suspicion that one of his first actions as Hokage will be to assign some, if not all, of the more routine tasks to others. He knows how to handle the daily routine, but he has yet to experience the truly difficult duties of this job first. Sarutobi said, pausing before grinning. I don't think he could endure spending all of his time in here. To be fair, you two are similar in that regard. Why didn't you assign your responsibilities to others? I wanted to keep things from becoming overly bureaucratic. I last gave up any power for a long time when I let the council decide what the academy's standards were, and we ended up reversing those decisions. Yes. I remember climbing trees while I was in the academy. Only because I had taught it to her did Hinata know it by the time she graduated. Despite having only half as much training time as his peers, Naruto Kun's shinobi training is progressing quickly. For those who are teaching him, he is becoming a very well-rounded ninja, which is both exciting and frustrating. Discomfort? In what way? Typically, a shinobi has already started working in their area of expertise when they arrive at Chunin. Naruto is so well-rounded that he is unsure of his area of expertise. We have only succeeded in getting rid of medicine and genjutsu. Although his weakness is fuinjutsu, it makes sense given that all he has been taught to make are storage scrolls and exploding tags. So, I assume that the standard approaches aren't working? Are you saying that he should be trained in diametrically opposed activities to determine which one best fits him? No, that is a complete failure. He is by no means a genius, but we can't help but believe that he has so much untapped potential that he will never be genuinely skilled at anything. Bringing you and his other teachers happiness and annoyance. What's that proverb? A master of none. a jack of all trades. Only half of it is that. Though often better than a master of one, is the other half. It's funny because it seems to be the Uzumaki clan's creed. I'm not surprised by that. Among other things, he shares a lot of characteristics with his mother. Sarutobi swore at himself for allowing that to happen. Now, don't blame yourself, Hokage. Sama. I witnessed what young Naruto did when I attended your assessment. He must be related to Kushina because that was a clan technique that only she and her clan used. She was pregnant when she passed away, as I also recall. Sarutobi stiffened, fearing Hiashi's next words. I think I'll take a leave of absence. Greetings, Hokage. Sama. Sarutobi chose not to press the matter, but there was a hint of suspicion in Hiashi's eyes. Hiashi, good day to you too. Have you made up your mind about my student? Only that he warrants further investigation. Sarutobi started writing a letter to Jiraiya as Hiashi departed. Uzumaki secret technique. River of Hell. Akaran e Uzumaki Hijutsu. Yomi no Oikawa. Akaran. Alright. You guys made it, Yash. Was there ever any doubt we would prevail? In the tower within the Forest of Death, Naruto had encountered Tenten and Lee. So, where's Neji at? When we left him, he was staring out a window. What have you been up to? Nothing much. I've spent the last couple days running messages and directing the visiting Chunin to hotels, bars, equipment shops, and training grounds. So, how have the exams been going for you? So far, they haven't been too bad. Neither part was easy, but they could have gone much, much worse. It's what happened before the first part that nearly cost us. Naruto gave a blink. Why, what happened before the first exam? Tenten let out a sigh. Lee here challenged the Uchiha to a spar before the first exam. If it had gone on much longer, both teams would have been disqualified, for fighting outside the designated portions of the exams and for being late. Naruto looked over at Lee. Why did you challenge the Teme? You have at least an entire year more experience than him. Unless something really bizarre happened, you would have won no matter what. I challenged him, Naruto.kun, because I wished to see where I stood against the most recent rookie of the year. It was a most unusual fight. Tenten cleared his throat. Unusual. Try heavily one-sided, Lee. The Uchiha never got a single blow in. That is true. I called it unusual because after I dealt him a blow to the face, his eyes changed color. He seemed confused at first. Then Guy Sensei intervened, ending the fight. Naruto squeezed his nose bridge. He was confused, Lee, because his fight with you activated his Sharingan. Had you not fought him, he probably wouldn't have gotten it until the second phase of the exams, if even then. Tenten gave Lee a punch to the arm. Great, just great. Your stunt just made getting promoted that much harder. That might not be true, someone said from the other end of the hallway. The Hokage, grinning, emerged as the voice's origin grew closer. Hokage. Sama, my dear, Team 7 has not made it to the end of this portion yet, and time is running out. Besides, even though Uchiha Sasuke has the use of the Sharingan now, he has had no time to learn how to use it. He has been preoccupied with the exams. Should he make it to the third part of the exams, however, you are right. The other examinees may have their work cut out for them. Do you really think that, Hokage? Sama? That he is unbeatable now? Sarutobi laughed. Heavens, no, the Sharingan is a formidable thing, but it isn't everything. It is possible to compensate for facing an opponent wielding it, though much harder for the average genin to do. Then why did you say it would be harder? I have been Hokage for a long time, longer than the other three combined, and I have presided over many promotion exams. I have seen how the majority of ninja, from both Konoha and other villages, react to facing a Uchiha. They fear losing the results of their hard work instantly, so they don't use skills that could give them the advantage. They choose to keep the range of their abilities a secret, and it often costs them dearly. Our profession may be one of secrecy and deception, but when it comes to promotions, one should always do their best. I see what you mean, Hokage. Sama, thank you. With that, Sarutobi went down the hall. My pleasure. Now then, I must be going. Good day, and congratulations on making it this far. I wish you luck with the remainder of the exams. Lee looked over at Naruto. Your sensei is most youthful for setting us straight, though I must ask if he should have helped us, giving away information. With a cunning grin, Naruto scratched the back of his head. How did he help? All he did was tell you why so many people have lost to Uchihas in the past. It's also his job to encourage you to do your best, so he gave a pep talk. While his sensei was giving the speech to those who had passed the second phase, Naruto stood off to the side and only partially listened. When he was informed of his own extended mission, he had listened to the majority of it. He decided that Konoha had done well this time, not that he was an expert, after looking at the genin who was still in the running. Sasuke had experienced some sort of trauma, but Naruto was clueless about what it was. He was aware that someone had tampered with the second exam section, and based on Sensei's expression upon learning of it, it was not good. He noticed with pleasure that Gaara and his siblings appeared to have developed a slight bond. Though it had significantly decreased since Naruto had first met them, Tamari and Konkuro were still tense and anxious around Gaara. Tamari and Konkuro had approached him the afternoon following his battle with Gaara and threatened to destroy his body if he ever used that jutsu on Gaara again. Naruto was more than willing to comply, even in the absence of their threats. It was just not his style to injure people's minds. He turned to his right and glanced up at Zabuza, who was grinning shit, eatingly under his bandages. "I'm almost afraid to ask this, Zabuza. Sensei, but why are you in such a good mood? Gaki, you have no idea how good it feels to be part of the Chunin exams again. Proctoring them was one of my favorite non-combat missions back in Kiri." "Oh, so, what were the exams like back in Kiri?" "Well, the first and third parts are pretty much the same no matter where you go. It's the second part that is unique to the village holding it, and is meant to be the hardest part of the exams. Here, it's a 5-day survival exercise. Back in Kiri, it was 1-on-1 combat with a shinobi of Chunin class or better." "Chunin class or better? You mean Junins?" "Not just them. There was a big roulette wheel with the names of shinobi of various ranks, though the ranks weren't revealed. The wheel was spun for each examinee. The genin would then face off against a shinobi who could be a Chunin, Junin, or even plain clothes Anbu. Hell, if they were really unlucky, they wound up going against one of the swordsmen or even the Mizukage. Holy crap, what was the point? We didn't go all out. We were just supposed to push them into displaying whether or not they were up to the base physical standards of Chunin. Chunin level chakra control and the like. As for why it was 1-on-1, it has a lot to do with village mentality. Here, teamwork is stressed, which is alright. To Kiri Ninja, teamwork is all well and good, but it's more important to be able to stand on your own 2 feet first. Besides, the exams in Kiri and Konoha are rather tame compared to Kumo or Iwas. What's so special about theirs? In Kumo, the test takers are basically put through a watered-down interrogation session. They can call it quits at any time, but they need to last past a certain time without cracking to pass. In Iwa, you'd be dropped off in a quarry and do physical labor for a full day. You pass if you make it through the full day. And the point for doing that to genin is to show them what happens if they get captured. Interrogation, then a forced labor camp, depending on the capturing village. Konoha imprisons them, other villages execute them after interrogation. The entire reason the second phases exist is to drop genin into a situation that they probably didn't consider when they put on the Hite.8 for the first time. Being trapped in hostile territory without the safety net of a Junin sensei, or having to fight solo against a superior foe. The second exam is the main reason why so many genin quit and return to civilian life, followed by making their first kill. Wow. So what about Suna or the minor villages? Suna hasn't had the funds to hold the exams in a long time, but theirs was improvised building, making shelters, weaponry, traps, that kind of stuff, from what was around you at the time. The smaller villages usually send their genin to the major villages for the exams, but every once in a while, they hold their own exams. Missing.nin love the minor village exams. Really? I thought that Missing.nin stayed away from ninja villages if they could. Most of the time they do. The thing is, when the minor villages hold an exam, they allow Missing.nin to participate. Of course, the nin in question goes through a check on just why they left their previous village. If they left under suspicious circumstances, they're usually turned away. If they left peacefully, or because of a disagreement with the running of their old home, they can usually participate. So why would Missing.nin want to surround themselves by shinobi when they have bounties on their heads? First off, if they're taking the exams, they are covered in the general truce that applies to anyone taking them. As long as they don't leave the village or commit a crime, they are safe for the duration of the exam. Second, depending on how well they do, people in villages will start bidding for their services. That way, a nin could find a new home village, or at the very least, legitimate work. Businesses hire them for private security forces, or non-shinobi villages hire them to act as a town watch. So by sticking their necks out a little bit more, they could wind up not being a Missing.nin anymore. It's actually a fairly low hassle C-rank mission to send a Chunin or two to the minor village exams. Why would a major village send Chunin to watch the exams? Most, if not all the villages send observers. They scout the participating missing.nin for talent and update their village's bingo book as well. It's policy, enforced by damn near every daimyo, that if a missing.nin gains legitimate employment or the protection of a village, be it ninja or civilian, they aren't missing.nin anymore, and can't be hunted. Of course, that's only if they don't continue to live the missing.nin lifestyle. If they keep acting like missing.nin, they're fair game. That actually sounds pretty cool. Oh, hey, the preliminaries are about to start. Tenten and Lee were among the Konoha genin who started laughing when the fighters for the first match appeared on the screen. Kiba was on the ground, rolling. Evidently, what had transpired earlier was well known. Sasuke Uchiha versus Lee Rock. It appears I did not need to challenge you before the first exam. Oh well, it makes no difference. You may have the Sharingan now, but you still stand no chance against me, Uchiha.san. Like I'm going to lose to a dobi like you. Everyone except the combatants head to the observation deck. Everyone watching realized as soon as the fight started that last year's dobi was too strong for Sasuke, the newest rookie of the year. Naruto wasn't sure if the Sharingan would have been useful, but he didn't know why Sasuke wasn't using it. He could only block at the moment. Lee was simply too quick, hitting Sasuke with lightning. Fast blows. At last, Sasuke was thrown to the opposite end of the arena by a single blow. Sasuke stumbled to his feet and snarled, "I refuse to lose to you." At that moment, he started to get weird black spots on his skin, which quickly spread. Some of the genin and the senior Konoha nin tensed. Time seemed to be standing still. Naruto noticed that Sarutobi had gone pale and that his hand was clenching and unclenching as he looked at him. What on earth is happening? Why do they all feel so anxious? Now, Sasuke's eyes were filled with rage. Now, you will die for daring to harm me. Lee, finish it now. Rang Naruto. Yosh, will do, Lee exclaimed as he charged forward and punched. Sasuke screaming while clutching his recently fractured arm was the next sound heard by anyone. It was a compound fracture, broken in at least 3 places, as seen from Naruto's point of view. The match ended when Hayate reacted. That's enough. Shosha, Rock Lee. Kakashi swore and started dragging Sasuke to the medical staff. Kakashi knocked Sasuke unconscious when he started to fight him because he wanted to stay and watch. He looked at Sakura and Sai before he left. Sai, Sakura, if I'm not back in time for your matches, I want to wish you both luck. Sarutobi called Naruto over to Lee as he was leaving the arena. The man's face had started to get colored again. Naruto, started Sarutobi, why did you tell Lee to end the fight? He seemed to be doing well enough on his own. Naruto let out a sigh. One of the more difficult exercises he had to perform was this one. Sarutobi would present him with a scenario and some background data, ask him to decide how to proceed, and then force him to defend his decision. Normally, he didn't perform well. He was capable of making wise choices, but he struggled to articulate them. I told him to do it because of what was going on with Sasuke. I had no idea what was going on, and I felt the fight had to end as quickly as possible. That is what you, Kakashi, Guy, Sensei, and Zabuza Sensei have all taught me to do. In combat, if you see something that doesn't seem right, end the fight immediately. How do you know it wasn't just some new jutsu? If it was a jutsu, why were you, the Junin, and some of the genin so worried? I saw some of them reaching for their weapons or beginning hand seals. They were expecting something bad to happen. So you instructed Lee to stop fighting before someone chose to step in and disqualify Sasuke and Lee? Naruto waited for the final decision while nodding. I believe you did well for a split second decision, but as you pointed out, it was only suitable in a combat scenario. Stronger arguments and frequently supporting evidence are required when leading a large group of people. So, I think the next game is about to begin. In the end, Naruto had mixed feelings about the preliminary fights. Some were really good, while others were biased. At the end of the match, Ino's taijutsu was up against Tenten's weapons, and the Shintenshin no Jutsu was also out. The moment Ino used it, Tenten would turn her into a pincushion. Although the match demonstrated that she had started to take her training seriously, it became clear that Asuma had been bringing her up to par physically but had done little else. Tenten won, of course. The Auto Nin Zaku was boxed in by Kiba and Akamaru, but when they attacked with a Gatsuga, Kiba couldn't stop in time to prevent himself from following Zaku into the wall, knocking them both out. After a stunned moment, Hayate declared Akamaru the winner. Although the match was officially a draw, and both human contestants were taken off to have their head injuries attended to. Kiba's fight was enough to make half the genin in attendance burst out laughing. Sai's fight was one of the better ones. His opponent, Akadu Yoroi, had initially attempted to get close and drain his chakra with some strange ability. Sai was able to avoid the older nin, and he attacked using animals he had sketched on a sketchpad. Yoroi drained the chakra from one of Sai's creations, turning it back into ink. Yoroi then slipped on the ink, and when he landed, Sai pinned him with wire. Naruto was tempted to try to recreate the jutsu after the preliminary round, but ultimately decided he wasn't that good of an artist. Besides, there was just something about standing back and letting someone or something else do your fighting for you that didn't appeal to Naruto, who had always been a hands-on kind of person. He had experienced the same thing when he watched Konkuro vs Sakura. Although puppetry was cool, it didn't seem right, and Konkuro ultimately prevailed because Sakura couldn't get past his puppet to attack him. Naruto, who had never witnessed anyone fight with a fan before, was greatly impressed by Tamari's battle against Choji. The large fan appeared to be strong but sluggish, and Tamari was not carrying any additional weapons that Naruto could see. When Neji's fight arose, Naruto was conflicted. He wanted his fellow Konoha nin to prevail, but he also wanted someone to knock Neji down a few more pegs. Since he wasn't getting the chance to do it himself, Gaara, Neji's opponent, would be just as effective because Gaara's sand kept Neji from getting close enough to attack, but eventually, when Neji lost his temper, he charged Gaara, who picked him up with his sand and slammed him repeatedly into the ground without ever leaving his position. This was a significant change in Gaara, who had previously told Naruto that he usually killed anyone who challenged him in combat. Sarutobi addressed the 9 finalists: Tamari, Shikamaru, Shino, Sai, Lee, Tenten, Hinata, Gaara, and Konkuro. At last, it was time for the winners to draw for their spots in the finals. You 9 have all performed exceptionally well. You will all compete against one another in the finals in a month. To decide the order in which you will fight, you must first draw a tile from this box. The order was announced by Sarutobi after the 9 finalists had drawn. Let's see. Sai vs Tenten in the first fight, Nara Shikamaru vs Hyuga Hinata in the second, Sabaku no Tamari vs Rock Lee in the third, Aburame Shino and Sabaku no Konkuro in the fourth, and Sabaku no Gaara vs Uzumaki Naruto in the last. Some of the disqualified genin, primarily Sasuke but also Kiba and Neji to a lesser degree, started to speak up at Naruto's name. Why is he in the finals? He isn't even taking the exams. Uchiha.san, my student is listed as an alternate for the finals, and has been for the last 3 weeks. Damn it, I want in the finals. I demand that you give me the Dobi's spot. Regardless of village, Naruto and the senior nin tensed at that announcement. Sarutobi stopped grinning and looked straight at Sasuke, who stared back at him with defiance. Uchiha.san, you are a genin. I am a Kage, your village's leader, and your superior. You are in no position to make demands of me. You are one step away from being insubordinate to me, and trust me, if you take that step, you will be punished. I may be known for being more tolerant of such things than others, but there is a limit to my patience. HMPH. Sarutobi glanced around at the gathered genin and said, you will report to the Hokage Tower at 9 tomorrow morning. The entrance could use a good cleaning, and you've just volunteered for the job. Now then, does anyone else wish to lodge a complaint about Naruto fighting in the finals? Sakura held up her hand. Hokage. Sama? I don't have a complaint. But doesn't Naruto have an unfair advantage over the other finalists? He's seen them fight, but none of us have seen him. Haruno.san, you have forgotten my little speech before the preliminaries. This is a war in miniature. In your career as shinobi, you can't be assured of always knowing who your opponent is and what they are capable of. In such situations, it is entirely possible that while you know nothing about them, they may know a great deal about you. It is with this in mind that Naruto is serving as an unknown. Kiba gave his head a scratch. You know, this sounds really familiar. It should. I believe Morino Ibiki told you much the same thing after the first exam. If you can't bring yourself to take a chance and face the unknown, you aren't ready to be Chunin, much less shinobi. Well, that makes sense, I guess. It's weird that Kabuto didn't know about this. He sure knew enough about everyone else involved with the exams. The senior nin in the room looked at Kiba and the others at this point. Kiba, what are you talking about? Inquired Kurenai. One of the other Konoha genin, Kabuto, he had info on everyone taking the exams. Mission records, stats, the works. We checked ourselves out, and the info was legitimate. Sarutobi was barely twitching. There was a problem, he had to get this over with. Now then, are there any other questions? No? Then follow me back to the village, and we will see you at the arena in 1 month. Hokage. Sama. Your guest is waiting in your office. Ah, good. Sarutobi entered his workspace. Okay, sensei, what on earth is so important that you called me back? Hello to you, too, Jiraiya. Hold on one moment, please. I need to speak with Tu Anbu first. Tu Anbu knelt down in front of Sarutobi as they entered the office, seemingly at the same moment. You sent for us, Hokage. Sama? Yes, I did. It has come to my attention that we may have a spy in our ranks. I want you two to investigate one Yakushi Kabuto. If he is a spy, I want to know who he is working for. Do not confront him. Understood? They said, "Hi, Hokage." Sama, in response. Dismissed. Sarutobi took a seat at his desk after the Anbu left. A spy, huh? What was the tip? Off. If what I was told is true, he is or was in possession of information that no one person, especially a genin, should have access to. Jiraiya blew a whistle. That's a pretty big red flag, alright. Back to my question, though. What am I doing here, sensei? Straight to business, In that case, I'll come right out and tell you. I want you to perform a long overdue inspection on Naruto. Conceal. Jiraiya blinked. A check. Up. Why now, after 13 years? Because as someone recently pointed out to me, Minato was an exceptional seal expert, but one thing he was not capable of was breaking one of the main tenets of Fuinjutsu, namely that seals lose strength without upkeep. You're right about that, I'll admit, but what about? Sarutobi leaned back in his chair and sighed. The excessive weight, I know. There are a multitude of excuses I could use, but here is the simple truth. At first, I didn't ask for you to do this because it was my belief that if I showed faith in Minato's abilities, the rest of the village would follow. Having you around so often to inspect the seal would have undermined what I was trying to do. Also, how could I have arranged for an annual inspection without revealing his secret to him? 1 year turned into 2, then 3. As he grew up, I saw no additional signs of his tenant's presence and assumed the seal was holding. I had grown fond of the boy, and it blinded me to the risk I was taking. It took Hyuga Heishi pointing that out to me to make me realize the potential danger I was engendering. That was when I wrote to you, asking you to return. So it wasn't because you thought I'd want to take him with me? You had still wanted to take the boy with you? I thought you had given up on that years ago. In all honesty, there were times when I had given your offers serious consideration. Jiraiya was the next to sigh. At first, I was really angry with you for not letting me take him with me. Then, I had a really bad encounter. The Gaki would have been 5, maybe 6. I got into a huge fight with a bunch of missing nin. After the fight, I sat there recovering. I remembered getting into similar situations when Minato and I were on our training trips. That led me to think about Naruto, and I started wishing he had been with me for company. Then I slapped myself for wanting to drag a little kid into life in death battles. After that, I stopped pestering you about taking him with me. You were right to keep him here, I just didn't see that. Jiraiya, I have no doubt that if I had let you take him he would have become an amazing shinobi. He'd have been a powerful shinobi, true, but not much else. Here, at least, he had a normal childhood, friends his own age, that sort of stuff. I couldn't have given him that, not with my nomadic lifestyle. Besides, I'd say he's got a better teacher in you than I could have ever been. You're twice as patient as I will ever be. He's had a childhood, but it didn't start to resemble anything close to what you or I would call normal until he was 10 and moved in with Kakashi. He moved in with Minato's student. Why? Naruto's apartment burned down. Several months prior, I had given Naruto his inheritance from Kushina. He was attacked in his apartment, and invoked Phlegathon in self-preservation. After that, I reread Minato's written wishes regarding him, and discovered things I hadn't seen before, such as the names of those Minato entrusted to protect Naruto, which happens to be you, me, and Kakashi. Jiraiya's forehead wrinkled. Why didn't you see this before then? Because your student wrote the list himself, and didn't tell us what he wanted to our faces, outside of his final wish. His inability to express himself in words struck at one of the worst possible times, and his son suffered for it. So, what's the boy like? He is remarkable, not just as a shinobi or as my student, but as a person. Almost too remarkable at times. At Jiraiya's unspoken request, he continued. He adapts to just about anything. His other 2 instructors, Kakashi, and I have been trying for some time now to help him choose his specialties, and nothing is working. With any other shinobi, such a thing would be dismissed as genius, but with Naruto, there is an extra variable to consider. Do you suspect the Kyuubi? It seems a plausible explanation, but I have no proof. Were I to blame the Kyuubi without rock, solid evidence of its involvement, I would be no better than some of the villagers. As much as it pains me to say this, some of the more stubborn villagers continue to blame him for any undesirable event, from hangnails and stubbed toes to an animal defecating in their yards. Huh. Would you like me to see if the Kyuubi is responsible when I do the check up? Please do. It would be one less thing for me to be constantly worried about. I can understand you being worried that this could be a sign that the seal may have weakened and that the beast may have a greater influence on him than we would like, but what if the seal is still stable? It will still be less of a worry to me, and I will be able to sleep again. Jiraiya, I haven't had a restful night of sleep since Heishi convinced me to send for you. Ever since that day, I've been lying awake at night, going through my memories, looking for warning signs I might have missed the first time. I find none, but it does little to ease the uneasy feeling in the pit of my stomach. I made a rookie mistake, losing my objectivity like that, and it is especially nerve-wracking to me after what happened the last time I allowed my personal feelings to cloud my judgment. Are you afraid you're making him into another Orochimaru, sensei? I hate to admit it, but there are times when I am very afraid that I am doing just that. He has a similar drive to learn and talent. What's more, he has a great destructive force within him and more than enough reason to lay waste to the village. If that ever happened, I doubt I could bring myself to try and stop him. If I did, it would be more out of a sense of duty than anything else. It is partly for that reason that I have decided against teaching Naruto-kun to conceal his emotions, for the moment at least. Why, in Kami's name, would you deny him that? We have only recently managed to convince him to tell us what he really thinks, not just what he thinks we want to hear. Training him to have a poker face at all times would throw all that work out the window, at least at the moment. He sure doesn't seem to have any trouble speaking his mind to me, from what I've already seen and heard. You would think so, but he can be notoriously tight-lipped and sensitive when he wants to be. Of everyone he trusts both me and Kakashi most of all, and there are things that he won't talk to us about. On more than one occasion, he has failed to let us know when he needs new supplies. When we asked about it, he replied that he was afraid we'd think he was careless. He cares too much about other people's opinions? Yes, especially the opinions of those he cares about. He's desperate for acceptance, and once he gains it, he becomes unwilling to do or say anything that could cause him to lose that acceptance. In professional life, this is unacceptable. If a mission fails because he had vital information in his possession, but didn't share it because he thought the others wouldn't want to hear it. Sarutobi did not finish his thought. It's the age-old dilemma between civilians and shinobi. Parents teach their kids to be truthful and honest, but their line of work demands them to steal, cheat, and lie. Naruto-kun must know when to speak up and when to keep quiet, when to volunteer information and when to be objective and just state the facts. Sarutobi sighed. I can't have someone teach him emotional concealment until that situation is fixed because it's one of the few areas where he is really lacking. It might destroy him on a personal and professional level. As for me, sensei, I want Naruto to have a family of his own someday, even though I know I'll come across as a cunning woman. I have first-hand knowledge of how crucial communication is to establishing and preserving a positive relationship. I therefore want to give Naruto every opportunity to live the best life possible. But we're trying to help him stop letting his feelings influence his decisions. Although it isn't the same, it will have to do until he is prepared to learn how to control his emotions while working. Overall, I may have my personal fears, but I know they are unfounded and Naruto-kun disproves them easily. When I'm not being seized by those lingering fears, he reminds me more of you than Orochimaru. Sensei, Oro. Teme burned you. Bad. You had high hopes for him, and he stabbed you in the back. I can totally understand why you're so afraid it could happen again. You don't like making the same mistake twice. Who does? Besides, I'm sure that if Naruto starts behaving like the traitor, someone is going to notice. Sighing, Sarutobi appeared considerably older than when he had first entered his office. I suppose you're right, Jiraiya. I know I am, sensei. So, mind telling me why Momochi Zabuza is training the boy? Sarutobi was taken aback by the abrupt shift in subject, but he bounced back fast. There are three main reasons: political, practical, and personal. Care to enlighten me? Many people in the village are leery of being around him. My political reason is to give him a chance at gaining acceptance. Practically, his time as part of the reserve forces is almost up. I need to see what would be the best course of action to take with him. So far, I have decided that a genin team is out of the question for the time being, and he is much better teaching advanced kenjutsu than beginning techniques. And the personal reason? So impatient. I was getting to that. By a strange coincidence, Zabuza's Junin sensei was Uzumaki Kenji, one of the 5 refugees, and the one who lived the longest of them all. If not for Naruto's birth, the clan would probably have died with him. Probably, sensei? After all this time, there is still no definite answer as to the fate of the Uzumaki that was bound for Iwa. I think that it is fairly safe to say that Naruto is the last Uzumaki. Anyhow, Kenji took Zabuza under his wing when no one else in Kiri would. He feels he has a debt to the man, and teaching Naruto-kun is his way of repaying that debt. You said Zabuza was teaching him, not just training. What else is the Gaki learning from him? I thought you would have figured it out, Jiraiya. Right now, Momochi Zabuza is the closest thing in the world there is to another Uzumaki. So, he is teaching Naruto-kun about what it means to be an Uzumaki. I can buy teaching him to repay a debt, but how in the hell would Zabuza know anything about the Uzumaki clan traditions? The clan may have been unconventional, but I highly doubt they would let outsiders know their most guarded secrets. I have my suspicions as to why Kenji did so. Remember, the almost complete decimation of the clan was unexpected. They expected the refugees to be safe, and to start taking measures to rebuild their clan. The way I see it, Kenji taught Zabuza some of the clan traditions in preparation for having him help rebuild the clan by marrying into it. That makes sense, I guess. Well, if you don't mind, sensei, I'll take my leave. Certainly. Would you like me to summon Naruto-kun? Nah, don't bother. I've spent all day traveling. I'm beat. I'm sure I'll run into him at some point. I'll let you know when I've finished looking at his seal. Sarutobi laughed. I have a sneaking suspicion that once you meet him, you'll be fighting to take over his training from me. Sensei, you know I swore that I'd never take another student. Yes, I know. I swore the same thing myself after the 3 of you began making your own paths in the world, and look at what I'm doing now. Point taken. See y'all later, sensei. Alright, have a good day. Hey there, sensei. Raising his gaze from the folder he was holding, Sarutobi saw Jiraiya standing in front of the desk, wearing a peculiar combination of expressions. Ah, Jiraiya. What can I do for you? I came to tell you that I finished the exam on the Gaki's seal. If I didn't know better, I would swear it was just done. Is there anything I should know? That was quick? It depends. You appear to be in the middle of something, but I could give you a more thorough explanation. It's nothing that can't wait a little longer, so yes. One of the town's stores submitted a request to expand their business by purchasing the vacant property next to them. After reviewing the data, I'm expected to determine whether to grant or deny their request. I understand. So, it's not precisely time sensitive. Not at all. How do you feel about my youngest student, then? Well, Jiraiya started, we certainly did meet in a unique way. While I was conducting research at the hot springs, your student was able to approach me from behind and let the women know I was there. They then started beating the living daylights out of me. After that, he claimed to already know who I was, just as I was ready to introduce myself. Not even my introductory dance was permitted by him. That's unfortunate, Jiraiya, said Sarutobi, rolling his eyes in his head. What came next? I took him away to a more remote location and examined the seal in some detail. Although the edges were a little worn, it was still holding up well. Even though the Kyuubi is still under control, the beast has had some impact on the boy's physical state. Yes, I was aware of that. The boy recovers quickly faster than most medical methods can achieve. Okay, that wasn't quite what I meant, but it works too. Sarutobi became worried. You didn't mean that he could heal? So what did you mean? Give me a moment. Upon conducting a more thorough examination, I discovered that the quantity of chakra he had acquired from the Kyuubi had decreased. Do you mean that his total reserves have decreased? You claimed that the seal was in excellent operating condition. I apologize for my miscommunication. The seal is functioning, and his reserves have not decreased. It appears that there is a small, unanticipated flaw in the seal's operation. For want of a better word, the Kyuubi can donate some of its energies in addition to the ones that the seal extracts on a daily basis. I meant that the Kyuubi was no longer providing the extra yukai when I stated that the amount he received had decreased. I understand. It was most likely attempting to influence the boy in some way. It chose to try a different strategy after that failed. When did the drop-off begin, do you know? About 2.5 to 3 years ago, based on my understanding. Why are you asking? 1.5 years? Fascinating. A little more than 2.5 years ago, I gave Naruto his mother's scroll. There might be a relationship. It might just be a coincidence, too. Did the child experience any other incidents during that period? Not at all. A few weeks after I handed him the scroll, I made arrangements for Kakashi to begin teaching him some chakra control techniques that were specifically created for Uzumaki clan members. I had a visit from Kakashi the morning following their first session. Kakashi was able to determine the identities of his parents because Naruto unintentionally revealed enough information. Well, chakra control. What is it? All right, I have a hypothesis. The Kyuubi used overwhelming force in their attack. After it was sealed, it might have concluded that Naruto would benefit just as much from what had worked for it and began giving him more Yukai. The beast might have realized that the rules were different for humans when the boy started working on his control, stopped donating, and started searching for other ways to guarantee Naruto's and consequently, Hisa's survival. That does make some sense, but I find it unsettling that the Kyuubi is so cognizant of Naruto's surroundings. I don't think the Kyuubi knows anything about Naruto's surroundings. Rather, I would say that it is conscious of the physical suffering that Naruto is experiencing. The Kyuubi is totally isolated from the outside world while the seal is in place. It still doesn't explain what you meant by saying that the Kyuubi has another influence on the boy. I'm making progress. To find out if I could use a Hyuga to watch the boy's training sessions from beginning to end, I went to the Hyuga compound. To my astonishment, Hyuga Heishi himself offered to observe. He has taken an interest in Naruto lately, so it doesn't really surprise me. Oh, in any event, he mentioned that you had informed him that Zabuza, Guy, and you were growing impatient with the boy's adaptation to styles that were incompatible with one another while traveling to the Gaki's training location. Heishi noticed traces of Yukai in Naruto's system when he was stretching after he started using his Byakugan to watch. It was always focused on the muscles he was stretching at the moment, and it was more than the seal could account for, but not enough to cause any alarms. This might be the solution Sarutobi had been seeking, so he sat up in his chair. What was the Yukai doing? Heishi stated that it seemed to simply be loosening them up, but he was unable to pinpoint the precise cause of the situation. We only know that he appears to be far more adaptable than he ought to be. Unbeknownst to him, Naruto.kun is essentially receiving a deep tissue massage constantly, which improves his range of motion and flexibility. That explains why we haven't previously noticed it. We were all searching for something blatantly out of the ordinary. We never considered searching the Kyuubi for something so subtle. Very astute. Did anything go wrong? Indeed, there was. That kid from Uchiha was spying on us. Really? Are you able to demonstrate it? Yes, I can. That moron was hiding in the trees around us 3 different times. Each time, Heishi and I scared him away, only for him to resurface a few minutes later in a different, more distant location. At last, if he didn't leave, I threatened to gouge out his eyes. To be honest, the little jerk believed he was good enough to hide from a Densetsu no Sanin in a Chunin. Are you making accusations, Jiraiya? Sarutobi felt compelled to say, yes, by something in his eyes. It's damn straight. Why wouldn't I? Sarutobi reached down and pulled out a thin folder and a full binder from a desk drawer, saying, let me show you something. This is not the first time he has done this, Sarutobi said, pointing to the folder. This folder contains all of the complaints that people he has been spying on have made against him. It includes all 10 exam finalists, high ranking and accomplished shinobi, and members of different clans. This, however, Sarutobi added, gesturing to the binder, contains every incident of his observation as recorded by several Anbu of which I have been following for some time. There are a lot more incidents that go unreported for various reasons, as you can see. What are your suspicions? The other shinobi may not want to report him because they are aware of his presence. The second most likely explanation is that they are not aware of him, which is concerning because it either speaks highly of his cunning or poorly of our shinobi's capacity to recognize other nin. So, what are you going to do? I can act now that you and Heishi have testified. I'll make the required preparations. Do you have any plans for what you'll do to him? Yes, in fact. One of the people he spied on gave me the idea. Dude, it's been at least 10 years since we last did this to Uchiha, and I haven't heard of any village doing this in the last 5 years, Jiraiya said, placing his hands behind his head. I had nearly forgotten about this small custom. I am aware. Young Sasuke is unlikely to even be aware of what he has caused. Furthermore, I seriously doubt that he is aware of the political harm he may have caused to the village, which is why I have to act right away. So, Sensei, is that the reason you've been waiting so long to accomplish this? No, the majority of the charges lacked sufficient evidence to withstand the scrutiny that would have been applied to them. There was not a single genin who could positively identify Sasuke as the spy, except for the Suna team. Although they didn't know who was watching, they knew someone was. However, the Suna team confronted him, took photos to prove it was him, and then filed a report. Yesterday was that day. I can't submit the Anbu reports because they automatically become classified documents and because I'm not supposed to have Anbu following Konoha shinobi for something like this. This sort of thing normally fell under the jurisdiction of the Konoha military police, and that never changed after the decimation of the Uchiha clan. The testimony of a respected Chunin and clan head, along with that of one of the Densetsu no Sanin, should be sufficient to quell any doubts that he has spied on at least one fellow Konoha shinobi. Two of the other nin he has been caught observing are not credible because they are on probation, and their accusations cannot be completely trusted because they have filed multiple complaints that were later proven fraudulent. Sensei, you've really thought this out? All of this, merely to avoid the typical penalties for a first offense? As you mentioned, it has been a long time since this specific crime was committed by anyone, and even longer since Uchiha was involved. I didn't think you would recall that we move on to the second level of sentencing after skipping the first penalties when Uchiha is found to have done this. Furthermore, all of the Uchiha clan's funds are entirely within the boy's reach. He will not be deterred in the least by fines or missions that are offered for free or at a reduced cost. The civilian population holds me to a certain standard of moral behavior as the Hokage, but I am a ninja first and foremost, so I have the freedom to do whatever I want to achieve my objectives. I just hope you know what you're doing, Sensei. I also hope so. I acknowledge that I am only human and have made a lot of poor choices and mistakes. I had hoped that this would not be the case. For the benefit of this village and its residents, I know that this must be done even though I don't want to. All of the villages off duty shinobi, active, reserves, and retired, were called to a vast training ground close to the arena where the exam finals would take place in 3 weeks. Even the Suna team was present, and civilians were not allowed entry. This was a shinobi only situation. After a while, a big circle was formed, with the Hokage in the middle. Sarutobi cleared his throat. Please take a seat, everyone. I appreciate you coming. I have a very important reason for calling you all here. But before we start, I think I should remind those of you who might have forgotten and explain what will happen to those who are too young to understand. It's often said that as ninja, we have a duty and a right to develop our strength through any means necessary. While this is true, there have been limitations on ninja cooperation virtually since the dawn of the shinobi era. Everyone in this room has a right to have their private training sessions remain just that, a private. Hearing something and looking into it is one thing, but spying on your fellow shinobi and comrades for your own benefit is quite another. Investigating further and discovering that you have accidentally stumbled upon a training session requires you to either make an announcement or depart right away. In any respectable shinobi village, that is the norm. Although the actual punishment varies depending on the village and the ninja's record, it is a serious offense for someone to secretly watch another person's training. While spying on ninja from your own village is shameful, it is even more reprehensible to spy on visiting shinobi who are in your village under a truce. Uchiha Sasuke, step forward. With his insatiable scowl fixed on his face, Sasuke emerged from the crowd. He moved in Sarutobi's direction. Uchiha Sasuke, you have been formally charged with multiple counts of covert observation of fellow Konoha shinobi, as well as observing the training of the 3 Suna genin, who are here under the truce of the Chunin exams. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Sasuke kept glaring at Sarutobi without saying anything. I will take that as a no. Very well. In accordance with standard procedure involving shinobi accused of crimes against their village and those under their village's protection, a panel of shinobi of all ranks was convened, its purpose to determine whether or not a crime was committed. Uchiha Sasuke, you have been found guilty by your peers. You will now be sentenced. He started again, speaking to the crowd. Allow me to explain. Normally, the punishment for a first offense is a combination of fines and performing mission at discount prices. However, a Uchiha has the ability to gain more from watching a single training session than most others, so we have a much harsher sentence for them. Uchiha Sasuke will face an opponent of my choosing in a fight right here on this field. This sentence caused a number of shinobi to stand up and start shouting in protest. Sarutobi flared his chakra to silence them. Be silent. By illegally observing the Suna genin both individually and as a team, he has committed at least 4 separate acts of aggression against Suna. The Suna genin are well within their rights to demand his head for what he has done. Should it be reported that he received leniency after committing these acts, we could stand to lose both business and our standing as an honorable village, where those who commit crimes of their own volition are punished for them. However, I have spoken with the Suna team, and we have reached an agreement. Sasuke's actions will not be reported to Tsunagakure, provided he receives the maximum punishment for a genin. Now tell me, which is truly more important, preserving our village's reputation and good name, or allowing a genin to get away with committing crimes that are acts of war, each of which would warrant a death sentence to anyone above the rank of Chunin? Even though some of the nin in the crowd complained, no one else voiced any more objections. Good. I have spent the majority of my life in service to this village and the principles it stands for. It would pain me to think that the village I thought this was existed only in my imagination. Now then, Jiraiya, administer the seal. Jiraiya materialized behind Sasuke and slammed his hand next to the curse seal into Sasuke's neck. Fuin. Sasuke writhed in agony as he fell to the ground. Sarutobi went on. The seal you have now received prevents the usage of your Sharingan while it is on you. It wouldn't be much of a punishment if you come away with Nujutsu, now would it? Why? You have no right to take the Sharingan away from me. On the contrary, I have every right. You are a shinobi under my command, and you have broken several laws. As such, I may do whatever I wish as punishment. Should you do it again, the next step will be the surgical removal of your eyes. Sasuke gave a scowl. Let's get this over with. Very well. Uchiha Sasuke, your opponent, is me. Sarutobi took off his robe and hat to reveal an older shinobi uniform. The present Konoha shinobi tensed. Was a genin going to face the Hokage? They hoped the Hokage wouldn't be going all out against the boy, but nothing they said would change that. Jiraiya, you may proceed. Hi, sensei. Combatants, take your positions. Hajime. Sarutobi ran forward and slammed his fist into Sasuke's stomach at Jiraiya's signal. Sarutobi grabbed Sasuke's arms as he leaned forward, spinning around with such force that Sasuke's feet lifted off the ground. Then the Hokage released his hold, launching Sasuke into the air. Sasuke landed hard and was only able to cushion himself enough to avoid getting hurt. He was sufficiently stunned by the startling pain that rushed through his body to lose sight of the old cage. Sasuke spun around and was flung into the air when Sarutobi grabbed him from behind. Sasuke started creating seals for a Kaiden jutsu while in midair, but he had to dodge a swarm of shuriken to stop himself. You would do well to conserve your chakra for using Kawarimi rather than trying to attack me, young genin. But if you wish to step this up, I am happy to oblige. The genin teams had gathered among the crowd. Kurenai used the occasion to pose a query that almost everyone in the room had on their minds. Kakashi.san, why didn't you try to defend Sasuke.san as his Junin? Sensei, that is your responsibility, is it not? Normally, Kakashi would have dismissed her inquiry, but he didn't want to be pestered with it. As for why I did not defend him, there is really no excuse for his actions. Ignorance of the law is not a valid excuse, no matter where you are. Plus, if I had ever done the same thing, I could have been forced to face the Hokage, and no matter how good I am, Hokage Sama is still a much better shinobi than I am. Kurenai.san, I personally believe that following the law is of the utmost importance, second only to loyalty to one's comrades, and that breaking these laws results in the following consequences. What made fighting the Hokage necessary for you, and you're not Uchiha? The law was modified from any Uchiha with an active Sharingan to anyone in possession of an active Sharingan after it was established that I could fully utilize my Sharingan. Both Hokage Sama and Sensei took care to plug any gaps so that I would have no justification if I ever did what Sasuke-kun did. What other reason would I have for following him and writing the majority of the Anbu reports on his espionage attempts for Hokage? Sama? Hokage Sama is generating killing intent and focusing it at the Uchiha, Shino said, raising an eyebrow. Very unusual. The only guidelines for this kind of thing are that pop. Actually, Asuma said. The Hokage is unable to take any action that would cause your classmate to die. It's legal if he passes away as a result of his injuries. Therefore, no deliberate death blows, poisons, or such. He can do anything he wants after that. Using killing intent is part of that. Sakura went on to ask, Kakashi Sensei, why didn't he know if Sasuke was facing criminal charges? Civilian crimes are tried in public with civilian trials. This was a crime committed by a shinobi, and shinobi trials are distinct. Since we are trained to kill, it would be illogical to allow the accused to see the faces of the people who will determine whether he is guilty or innocent because they are our allies and we must be able to cooperate. If the accused went around murdering the jurors for his trial, it might lead to animosity and put the village in danger. Thus, the trials are held behind closed doors. Sasuke was in trouble. The Hokage was not showing him any mercy after his failed attempt at retaliation, though in fact, he was being shown some mercy because he was still alive, and now he had to deal with jutsu in addition to dodging physical blows and weapons, while being blasted with just enough killing intent to slow his reaction time, and he was struggling to perform even the most basic movements. The Sandaime had dealt enough damage and scored enough solid blows that Sasuke wouldn't be around for much longer. Using his last jutsu, Sarutobi exclaimed, "Doden. Ishikinanbo.ru." The jutsu connected, and the sound of Sasuke's ribs breaking and the cries of pain that accompanied it filled the clearing as the ground next to him swelled and spat out a stone sphere the size of Sarutobi's head at Sasuke. "I'm ending this," Jiraiya said as she moved forward. "He will be out of commission for some time and is totally helpless." Sarutobi spoke up once more as the medics arrived and started stabilizing Sasuke for hospital transportation. "There's one more thing before we adjourn. As previously stated, young Sasuke was punished for spying on the Suna Genin with this small show. In addition, Uchiha.san was found guilty of spying on fellow Konoha nin, for which I now have to impose the punishment. Until Jiraiya and I agree that it is time to remove the seal that disables the Sharingan, it will stay on him. The Sharingan will become permanently sealed if the seal is attempted to be removed or altered. You can leave now." As the shinobi started to scatter, Sarutobi approached Naruto's position. "Naruto.kun, I believe I have you to thank for how well I did." Scratching his head, Naruto said, "What are you talking about? I was not involved in your altercation." Sarutobi chuckled. "I didn't realize how out of shape I had gotten sitting in that office every day until I started training you, Naruto.kun. I could have easily gotten hurt or looked like a total fool if it weren't for you. Now, please hurry up to my office and remove the liniments, salts, and basin. Put on some boiling water as well. Even though I didn't hurt myself, I will truly feel the pain when I return to the office because the adrenaline will have worn off." Naruto said, "Hi, sensei," and started to head toward the Hokage's tower. As he headed for the same place, the elderly Kage remarked, "Getting old really sucks sometimes." The door of the Hokage's office was knocked on. "Hokage. Sama, we have an update regarding our mission." With the two Anbu he had assigned to investigate Yakushi Kabuto in front of his desk, Sarutobi allowed them to enter and looked up from his desk. His feet were still hurting, so he had them soaking in the basin filled with hot water and Epsom salts. "So soon? Only a week has passed since I assigned you the task. Okay. Let's listen to it. We are nowhere near the conclusion of our investigation, Hokage. Sama, but we have uncovered evidence that we felt could not wait. Go on. He hasn't done anything questionable on the surface. He doesn't show it if he is aware that we are observing. But while he was away, we managed to retrieve a set of chakra responsive data cards from his apartment. We were able to recover fingerprints from the card's surface, but whatever information was on them has since been erased." "Which fingerprints were recovered?" "As anticipated, Yakushi San's prints. In addition, there is one additional source in the prints of several rookie Konoha genin. The presence of their fingerprints could be explained by the genin's admission that they looked themselves up. This other source, what about it? Do you know who this other individual is?" The Anbu exchanged glances. "Yes, sir, we have. The prints are the property of Orochimaru." Sarutobi just steepled his fingers and leaned back in his chair, clearly disappointed if they were hoping for an outburst. "I understand. Naturally, he would need someone inside to get to training ground 44, let alone the village. What else is there? He seems to be deliberately hiding his chakra in order to keep his cover as a genin. We are therefore only able to speculate as to his actual level of proficiency." "Excellent. Keep observing him. Don't confront him again. His adoptive father was a highly skilled medical professional. Some of the medical jutsu that can be modified for use in battle might be useful to Kabuto. If anything else comes up, please report it directly to me. In order to help you, I will also assign more Anbu. Kunai and Shuriken are on sale downtown, will be the emergency passphrase if I'm otherwise busy and you need to notify me of a new development." "Understood, Hokage. Sama. Alright, Naruto, let's take a break." "Yeah, sure, but why are you training me, Kakashi? What about your team?" "Sasuke will be in the hospital until sometime after the exams, and Sai, for some reason, turned down my offer to help him. He said he preferred to train on his own." "What about Sakura? Actually, I completely forgot about her." Naruto gave Kakashi an incredulous look at this. Alright. She's undertaking a personal mission vital to continuing her career in service to Konoha, something only she can do." Naruto raised his eyebrows. "What kind of mission?" "Sakura has absolutely no idea what she wants to do with her career. Just because she is on a team with people who are combat oriented doesn't mean her path lies there. As her Chunin. Sensei, it's my responsibility to help her decide. So I spoke to Hokage Sama, and he arranged for her to spend the month before the finals working with professionals in some of the various specialty jobs available for a kunoichi. How can that take a month? I mean, the specialties are taijutsu, genjutsu, ninjutsu, kenjutsu, and fuinjutsu, right? Not quite. You're confusing skill specialties with job specialties. I'm talking about things like weapons forging, teaching at the academy, the medical arts for both humans and ninkin, even some of the administrative jobs, like record keeping and information analysis. That is what Sakura is doing. Wow, that actually sounds kind of cool. Too bad they don't do stuff like that for the academy students or new genin. It would probably be a lecture series if anything. If the students were able to choose, odds are, they would flock to the active duty options. I can't see an academy student or fresh genin willingly submit themselves to administrative work. Naruto gave his chin a scratch. I don't know, if it doesn't involve lots of activity, it would probably be right up Shikamaru's alley. Very true. To be honest, few members of the Nara clan remain front line shinobi after a few years. They either become reserves and focus on their gear or become administrators. But we're getting off topic. You know, I'm curious. Why is it you haven't asked me to teach you Chidori? Considering the rate you devour new jutsu it, I thought you would have been begging me to teach it to you ages ago. Well, from what you've told me, it needs a Sharingan to be used effectively, which I don't have, and a fairly strong affinity to lightning, also something I don't have. I didn't think that would stop you. Call it Sensei's influence. I'd love to learn it, but I'd never be able to use it the way it's intended, if at all. Besides, since you're the only person who knows it, I won't have to learn the jutsu in order to find a counter for it. Kakashi gave his head a scratch. Fair enough. Now that that's settled, let's get back to work. Hey, Kakashi, I have a question. Why do you keep saying you're not much of a teacher? You're doing great as far as I can tell. Well, maybe it's not that I'm a bad teacher, it's just that I don't do well with rookies. I guess I've got something in common with Zabuza. We just do better teaching more experienced shinobi. Zabuza lacks the temperament needed to work with rookies, and I have difficulty relating to how little experience and knowledge they have. Take that lecture I gave you way back when, on the hand seals. Did you understand any of it? Not then, and I'm still kind of shaky on it, to be honest. My point exactly. Most Chunin don't even know what effect the seals have on a jutsu, and I was trying to teach it to an academy student. In my shinobi career, I have almost never struggled with anything. As a result, I don't always understand why others struggle with something I find to be dirt simple, and when it comes to training genin, just about everything seems dirt simple from my perspective. Now let's give that jutsu another try. Okay, here I go, Sweden. Daibakufu. A nearby pond's water started to swirl, attempting to shape itself into the jutsu. Before exploding and soaking Naruto and Kakashi, it trembled. The water was spat out of Naruto's mouth. Too much chakra? Yep. Naruto was in Sarutobi's office the following day, assisting with file organization. Naruto had tasks to complete here even though getting ready for the finals was his top priority. Sarutobi was occupying himself in order to block out the nausea he was experiencing. According to the Anbu, Baki and Kabuto had a covert late-night meeting last night. They had probably saved Gekko Hayate's life by stepping in to stop him from confronting the two. The whole Suna team would be visiting his office shortly. He did it formally in order to express regret for Sasuke's behavior. Informally, he would be attempting to elicit any more information that he could. He wanted something specific, but the evidence so far suggested that Orochimaru and Suna were plotting. The reason for this was that, as a man of peace, you usually want indisputable evidence before taking any action that might result in violence. The main reason he wanted Naruto there was to make it seem like nothing unusual was happening. The youngest sibling and Naruto had developed a bond of some kind, and his presence would help maintain a lighthearted tone. But Sarutobi wasn't anticipating the fallout if things didn't work out. He was aware that Naruto had trouble forming new friendships and that a friendship with a ninja from a different village had drawbacks. It might facilitate the development of positive village relations, which was generally viewed favorably in Sarutobi's novel. However, it was also not unusual for one individual to take advantage of that friendship to pressure the other for information that might be used against them or their village in the future. Sarutobi was startled out of his reverie by a knock on the door. The four Suna nin entered after Naruto opened it. Welcome, and thank you for coming. Thank you for asking us here, Hokage Sama. Yes, well, please take a seat. Tell me, how are things in Suna? Baki tensed. We are surviving, despite the daimyo's decision to begin contracting other villages to take missions that normally would have gone to Suna. Ah, I see. In all honesty, I still don't understand what made him decide to begin doing such a thing. Baki glanced in Naruto's direction. It happened after the affair involving the Uzumaki. Both Naruto and Sarutobi blinked. I was under the impression that since she willingly chose to join in the fight, Suna was not liable for her death. That was the official decision. However, after what happened, the daimyo began to question our capabilities. If Suna couldn't handle a simple C-rank escort and protection mission, how could we successfully handle the higher-ranked missions? After that, he began directing missions of B rank and up to other villages, with other nobles and clients following suit. Cage. Sama still spits acid when the name Uzumaki is mentioned. That is regrettable. I wish your Cage were more willing to accept Konoha's help. Alas, all that I can do is offer to return your missions to you. I cannot make your Cage take them. Sarutobi was the center of attention for all four Chunin. Hokage. Sama, what do you mean when you said you made an offer to return our missions? You weren't aware. For the last 15 years, both myself and Yondaime Hokage have tried to reroute those missions back to Sanagakure, only to be stopped by the Cage. Why would the Cage do such a thing? He would be purposely harming Suna by those actions. Sarutobi appeared to shrug as he spread his hands. Your leader is a very proud man. When we asked him that very question, he said that he and, by extension, Suna, would never accept an act of charity from a competing village, especially when said act of charity involved something that was Suna's by right. Even approaching it like a business deal instead of an act of goodwill between two allies met with failure, he was, and still is, determined to have missions be contracted directly to Suna from the client or not at all. Baki cleared his throat. That is a fascinating story, Hokage. Sama, but you can't expect us to believe your word over Cage. Sama's so easily. Can you offer proof that any of this is true? No, it is a case of my word against his, and I admit that. Still, if there were any way that Konoha could help, we would. The Chunin exchanged glances. The Cage had consistently claimed that one of the reasons for their involvement in the invasion was Konoha's refusal to return the missions. The Hokage, however, claimed that their village's suffering was due to their leader. They couldn't deny that the Cage's obstinate refusal of something, followed by an explanation or a finger pointing of the other party, was perfectly normal. Would he, however, consciously condemn his village because of his pride? He would, of course. He had acted similarly toward Gaara. Even at the expense of his other two children's lives, he attempted to completely erase the costly error he had made rather than own up to it and try to make amends. It is too bad that we can't come to some arrangement, Hokage. Sama. Suna would welcome the return of our missions, despite Cage. Sama's opinions to the contrary. Sarutobi made the snap decision to take the direct route. Perhaps we can make a deal, Baki-san. Tell me, what is going on between my traitorous student Orochimaru and Suna? Sarutobi went on, all business now, after noticing the Chunin's start. Come now. I am well aware of your meeting last night with Yakushi Kabuto, who has been confirmed as a spy for Orochimaru. What is going on? Knowing that he would have to commit treason in one way or another, Baki winced. If I tell you, will you consider putting Suna's missions back on the bartering table? They have never been taken off. If the Cage ever changed his mind, or if a new Cage was put into office, all they would have to do is ask, and we would sit down and begin hammering out details. As for negotiating now, that would depend on what information you give me. All right. Orochimaru is the leader of Autogakure, and he and Kazakage Sama have made an arrangement where the combined forces of both villages will attack during the exam finals. I was expecting something of that nature. Among other things, he wishes to destroy the village and kill me, in no particular order. Tell me, how did he convince the Cage to aid him? He promised the return of all our missions, as well as increased status for the village, for aiding in the destruction of Konoha, long heralded as the strongest of the shinobi villages, in front of some of the most influential people there are. So the Cage intends to take by force what has been offered freely for over a decade. Such a pity. The attack is set to begin at the beginning of Gaara's match. His opening attack is the signal. Very well. Let us begin to make a deal. In exchange for Suna's neutrality in the invasion, I am prepared to offer you the mission we have received that should have gone to Suna. Baki blinked. With all due respect, Hokage Sama, that is not much of an offer. You are asking us to change our stance, offering the same things as the deal Suna has already made. Yes, but as it stands, you would incur a rather sizable loss of life among your ranks of experienced shinobi in the process. One you can't afford if you were to regain the missions. I am offering the chance to regain the missions without the loss of life. However, if the Suna forces were to come to Konoha's aid rather than Otto's, the rewards would be that much greater. What exactly would these greater rewards be that would make us rally to Konoha? A complete overhaul on the Treaty of Alliance between our two countries. The Suna Nin fell silent in shock. Given that the daimyo of both nations would have to be involved, that was no easy task. Why would you do such a thing? It is something long overdue. That treaty has been in effect for over 35 years and not once has it been revised or amended. Large portions of it no longer affect either village. In exchange for Suna's help, we would reforge an alliance more suited to our current needs. I know you are the Kage's second.in command. He would entrust no other with the training of his children. What do you say? Baki let out a loud sigh. You have me in a very tight spot, Hokage. Sama. I can't, in good conscience, have Suna Nin throw their lives away when I know a peaceful solution is within reach. On the other hand, you are asking me to commit treason against my leader. I am asking you to do what is in the best interest of your village and your fellow Nin. When he took office, your Kage took an oath to always act in the best interest of his village and those he leads. He has broken his oath to all of you. What loyalty do you owe him? During the entire conversation, Naruto had remained silent. He had no idea what to think at the moment. In his mind, everything was a mess. Although the invasion was unexpected, his sensei's behavior was what truly affected him. This was the toughest old man he had ever seen. It was inexplicable. It wasn't a look or a show of toughness. A stranger who was tough as nails and would stop at nothing to achieve his goals had taken the place of the man Naruto had always known as the kind and fair village leader. This was the Hokage, not his sensei. Hokage. Sama, what you are asking of us can be done with only minor difficulty. I would need to deal with some of the Kage's more ardent supporters, but that is easy, and the others will follow my lead. So, though I am betraying my leader, I will throw my support behind Konoha. However, if I am to convince the others, I will need proof of your intentions. No problem. Reaching into a desk drawer, Sarutobi took out a large green scroll, pen, ink, and blank paper. Here are all the missions Konoha has received since the beginning of the month that would normally have gone to Suna. I am giving this to you as proof that I would honor the deal should Suna's forces be neutral. Sarutobi wrote a message on the blank paper, signed it, and applied his own seal. This is a written document, stating that should Suna rise to Konoha's aid, I will contact the daimyo of both our countries about renegotiating the treaty. Will that be sufficient? Baki was fidgeting with the mission scroll. Hokage. Sama, the mission scroll alone would be more than enough, but I will take both. Sarutobi turned to Naruto and said, very well. Naruto, why don't you take your fellow genin here to get something to eat and find some entertainment? Baki.san and I need to discuss some specifics and it may take a while. Hi, sensei. Whatever you decide to do, the Hokage's office will pay for, within reason. Are you sure, sensei? Consider it a training exercise. One of the duties of a Kage and their assistants is to entertain visiting dignitaries. They qualify, so whatever you do can be considered a business expense. Now go on, Shu. After standing and bowing to the two senior ninja, the four genin departed. Hokage. Sama, your student is something else, Baki said to Sarutobi after the door had closed. Sarutobi smiled. I think so too, on occasion. What makes you feel that way, if I may ask? You have read the report about what happened between Gaara and your student while he was escorting us here? Well, ever since, Gaara's personality has started changing slightly, especially where Tamari and Konkuro are concerned. Really? How so? Until recently, Gaara would attack anyone, friend or foe, on a whim. Now, he has begun to act protectively of them both. I wouldn't think that was such a bad thing, to want to protect one's siblings and teammates. It isn't. I want to encourage it, but he's taking it to an extreme. He has stated, in no uncertain terms, that if anyone were to raise a hand against either Tamari or Konkuro, he would take great pleasure in wiping them from existence. That is my problem with his new attitude. They are both Suna shinobi, not porcelain dolls. Getting hurt is a risk they accepted when they put on the Hite.8. If you want some advice, give him time, and he may calm down and accept that. Gaara stopped as the four genin had just left the tower. Wisps of sand were flowing around him, and he had a very irritated expression. He vanished in a cloud of sand after saying, I need to do something before we start making plans. Alone. From a nearby training ground, The 3 genin that were left heard a tree being violently uprooted and then flung into more trees a few seconds later. Tamari and Konkuro stopped Naruto just as he was ready to dash over there and investigate. What gives, you guys? Trust us, if you show up there right now, you would be nothing more than a bloodstain in about 5 seconds flat. Gaara's venting, and should be left alone until he's done, if you know what's good for you. In the meantime, let's keep others from poking their noses in. Naruto raised his voice as they made their way slowly toward the training area. Does he do this stuff often? The 2 older genin exchanged a tense glance at this. Actually, until Gaara met you, he was more likely to vent on people and animals, not inanimate objects. They were close enough to hear snatches of Gaara's inner monologue over the sounds of the devastation he was causing. How dare he? What he did to me was bad enough, but doing it because he couldn't bring himself to ask for help from a village that we are allied with. The next time I see him, I will feed him to my sand. Then, as quickly as it had begun, Gaara's destruction therapy session came to an end, and he reappeared beside the other genin in another sand cloud, his usual expressionless face returning. His companions, a little taken aback by the abrupt shift in attitude, nodded stupidly when he said, I feel better now, let's eat. Naruto sent a Kage Bunshin back to inform the Hokage that the training ground Gaara had used needed some serious landscaping before they left for a restaurant. He had verified that it was now a wasteland. Tamari asked a question she had been considering since the Hokage's office at the restaurant they had chosen. Hey Uzumaki, after getting Naruto's attention, she kept going, this has been bugging me. How on earth did your clan get 1 daimyo, let alone 5, to act as middlemen for them in dealing with the major villages? Nobody has that much clout. Well, Naruto said, I wondered about that too. I never knew my mother or the Uzumaki clan. Hell, I didn't even know about either one until I was 10. I was sent on a mission to my clan home a while back, and I've kept in contact with some of the villagers who live in the area. From them, I've gotten enough information to put something together. So, go on. Near the village the Uzumaki clan called home is a port town, one that gets a lot of merchant traffic, both land and sea based. If a sea-faring merchant wanted armed guards for their cargo, they would go to the nearest source, the Uzumaki. They could have gotten civilian guards or hired from an established village. Why go to the Uzumaki? For one thing, the Uzumaki were right there, not even a half-day's walk from the port. Second, since they weren't affiliated with a shinobi village, their rates were cheaper, and we all know how merchants like cheap things. Finally, there are the Uzumaki clan jutsu, designed especially for use on open water, Naruto added in response to the nods. Konkuro gazed at Naruto incredulously. Are you telling us that your clan had jutsu just for traveling on seas and oceans? Yep. A lot of the jutsu unique to my clan are useless anywhere else. The most commonly used ones would bring wind on calm days or calm stormy weather in a given area. There are also offensive and defensive jutsu too. So how does all this tie into my question? I'm getting there. Now, because of this, the Uzumaki became the Go.To clan for sea merchants. That's part of the reason Kiri hated my clan so much. If it weren't for the Uzumaki, Kiri would be getting those missions. Anyway, sea merchants do business with land-based merchants to distribute their goods inland, giving the Uzumaki business connections just about anywhere there's buying and selling. And since even a daimyo needs goods from merchants, when the clan needed asylum, all they had to do was pull the right strings, and the daimyo of the 5 great countries contracted the major villages to give my clan that asylum. Tamari's eyebrows arched. And what about the loss of Suna's missions? How does that fit in with your clan? When Naruto noticed that Gaara and Konkuro were paying a little more attention to him, he began to defensively wave his hands in front of himself. Hey, we had nothing to do with that. When the missions were contracted, each one of the villages received an increase in funding. The Third Shinobi War was going on, so the money was needed. If the assigned clan member died under the village's protection from something that could have been prevented, the penalty was the loss of the extra funding, not losing missions. That's your daimyo overreacting. Besides, you heard my sensei. Suna was not at fault for her death. She chose to join in the fight of her own free will. Tamari grinned. Relax, I was just teasing. The Kage may be our father, but we haven't much respect for him for a long time, as a father or a leader. If what the Hokage said is true and word gets out, he won't get much support from the rest of the village. Once that was resolved, the 4 genin began to eat. After several weeks, the moment had arrived. Naruto was twitching because he was so anxious. He had hoped that today wouldn't come, but he also wanted it to be over. The invasion took place today. He had a general idea of what was happening, but the Hokage had kept him out of the loop for the majority of the planning. Sarutobi's offer had been warmly accepted by the Suna forces. After dealing with the Kage's supporters, Baki's main challenge now was to prevent the Suna Nin from pursuing the man directly before the invasion turned the tide. After learning what was going to happen, Zabuza grabbed Naruto and began forcing him to perform some of the Kiri Academy exercises that prepared the students for the previous, lethal graduation exam. Zabuza claimed that Naruto was too old to fully benefit from them, but at least he wouldn't freeze. The Hokage's voice echoed as Naruto stood in the contestants' booth attempting to relax. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final round of the Chunin exams. If you will please take your seats, we will begin shortly." Silently, the assembled audience watched as Sai left the arena using only his own strength. Given how evenly matched the two fighters were, his battle with Tenten had already been incredibly difficult and only became more so. Ultimately, Tenten had managed to hold him at bay, causing him to expend chakra on his ink beasts, which were quickly vanquished. "Will Nara Shikamaru and Hyuga Hinata please make their way to the arena? The second match is about to start." Naruto held onto the combatant's box railing. The thought of what would happen to his fellow Konoha genin made him extremely anxious. They were all unaware of the invasion. Sensing his discomfort, Sarutobi had clarified why they were not to be shared. They had to pretend they were unaware of the invasion in order for their counter-plan to succeed. The other genin appeared to be giving it their all, but they lacked the experience necessary to hold back. By assuring Naruto that his fellow genin would be evacuated to several secure locations, including the hospital and civilian shelters, Sarutobi had allayed some of his fears. Hopefully, he would be one of the few genin to engage in combat today. He watched the fight between Hinata and Shikamaru start as he looked down. As one might anticipate from a battle between a close-range fighter and a mid- to long-range fighter, it began with Shikamaru trying his hardest to keep Hinata from approaching him and Hinata searching for an opening while dodging his blows. Hinata eventually turned to kunai and shuriken to divert his attention and get the gap she required. Shikamaru, on the other hand, never took his eyes off Hinata and only moved slightly to avoid being struck. As the battle continued, Hinata finally relaxed and was captured by Shikamaru's shadow. But Hinata wasn't going down without a struggle. She fought the Nara's jutsu, trying to get Shikamaru to mimic her movements rather than the other way around. She worked very hard to force Shikamaru to open his kunai holster and draw one. In an attempt to get Shikamaru to drop the cage main, she made him hold it to his own neck, but the cunning Nara managed to regain control and win the match. The cage faced Sarutobi between the second and third games. Well, I must admit, it seems the next generation of Konoha shinobi has a great amount of potential. I can only hope my 3 children can prove themselves a worthy match. I have no doubt your 3 genin will make an impressive showing. I am especially looking forward to the final match, my son Gaara versus your newest student, Uzumaki Naruto. After all, from what I understand, they are considered the 2 most powerful genin competing today. Naruto.kun is talented, I freely admit that. However, he does have his weak points, as do we all. So you are saying the rumors of his skill are overrated? He is skilled, but his field experience is lacking compared to that of some of the others, most notably your genin. One of the disadvantages of having a cage for a sensei. Surely you could have sent him on missions with another genin team. I could have, and I have done just that on numerous occasions, but I still feel that there are certain things that I, as his official sensei, need to be there for, so his combat experience is not what it should be, considering his abilities. Unfortunately, there are certain roadblocks to allowing a village leader to go on a mission, or to take his student on a training trip to an undisclosed location for an unspecified amount of time. The cage roared with laughter. True, very true. I would love to go on a combat mission at times, just for a change. Sarutobi turned to the arena and grinned. Ah, the third match is about to begin. Sarutobi secretly signaled the proctor to call an intermission following the fight, which the cage was unaware of. It's likely that Orochimaru was unaware that he had just surrendered. The majority of the observers unconsciously believed that Lee had no chance. They didn't even consider the possibility of a ninja who could defeat a long-range expert with only taijutsu moves. Thus, when the match started, many people's mouths dropped open. Lee fled in the direction of Tamari as soon as the proctor said, "Hajime." Naruto could understand why Lee hadn't even bothered to put on his weights. In this manner, he would avoid wasting valuable time taking them off, which would leave him open to assault. Until Tamari started to predict Lee's next move, Lee's speed allowed him to both make some of his own attacks and avoid the majority of Tamari's wind attacks. Then her attacks started to hit more frequently. All the while, she was gritting her teeth. How is this even possible? It isn't natural for anyone to be this quick. Oh no, normally, I would start putting enough distance between us to truly let loose, but I'm confined to the arena here. Given how close we are, I could end up being attacked by myself, which would be extremely embarrassing. Lee's speed eventually overtook him. When he approached too closely, Tamari collapsed her fan and swung it as forcefully as she could at Lee's head, making a firm contact. Despite some damage to her fan, Tamari prevailed after Lee crumpled. After returning to the competitor's booth, she took out a toolkit and got to work repairing the big dent she had caused when she struck Lee. She also looked for any other damage. She would be even more vulnerable without her fan than she was when she and Lee fought. When the proctor announced it, Sarutobi stood up and stretched. "Ah, I needed that. I will return shortly, Kazekage, Sama." "Very well, Hokage. Sama." Sarutobi moved to a designated location. Baki was waiting for him, as was Jiraiya. "Is everything ready for what is to come?" "Yep, sensei. We just need to find the snake." "That won't be necessary. I've already located him. He's sitting next to me in the private booth." "What?" Baki asked, perplexed. "My former student developed a jutsu which allows him to peel off a person's face and wear it as a mask. He always was a talented impersonator, but this is too much. My guess is that the real Yondaime Kazekage has been dead for some time, and Orochimaru has been leading Sanagakure under his guise." "What gave him away, sensei?" "Orochimaru made two very small mistakes. Baki-san had informed me previously that the Kazekage would rather eat glass shards that say the name Uzumaki with anything other than anger and loathing. He did just that." In the same sentence, he also acknowledged Gaara as his son, something that based upon what I understand of the history between the two, he would not do. Baki was inconsolable. I don't know how to feel about this. On one hand, I am somewhat relieved, because we are no longer committing treason, and depending on how long this has been going on, we may not have committed it at all. On the other, our leader is dead, murdered and impersonated by a man posing as a potential ally, and apparently no one has noticed. This disturbs me greatly with what that could mean. After today, Orochimaru will not be a problem. Jiraiya, do you have that seal we discussed? Jiraiya produced a tiny paper square. "Here you go, sensei. I'm surprised you're taking this route, though. I was sure you would want to face Orochimaru." "I do want to face him, but in this case, I am willing to trade that for assurance of his death. This village needs a leader more than I need closure." "Well, this seal will virtually guarantee the death of anyone caught in it, which could include you if you're not careful, sensei." "I will be careful. I had best be heading back to the arena now." The fourth game was over. Both Shino and Konkuro had put on an incredible display, using a wide range of strategies and techniques. The moment one appeared to have the upper hand, the other eliminated it. Ultimately, Konkuro was cornered by Shino's Kikai, who threw in the towel before he was exhausted and rendered useless. Zabuza took notes on a scoring sheet up in a separate, private observation booth from the cage booth. Asuna Junin was standing beside him, doing the same. The matches were evaluated based on each fighter's skill level readiness for the Chunin rank. He asked the Hokage if he would still serve as a judge after learning that Naruto would be serving as an alternate because he was worried about possible charges of bias, which the Hokage acknowledged was a legitimate worry. However, as long as Gaara was fairly assessed, there wouldn't be any issues because Naruto's promotion would be based on a completely different set of criteria rather than his performance in the finals. This match was essentially for show after the invasion was made public. Zabuza genuinely felt sorry for those who had placed wagers on this game. All bets would be void and non-refundable because the match wouldn't be completed uninterrupted, and there wasn't much chance of a rematch. The final match: Uzumaki Naruto of Konoha against Sabaku no Gaara of Suna. At the announcement, the audience let out loud, boisterous cheers. These two were generally regarded as the most potent and likely to be promoted genin in the exams, despite the reluctance of some spectators to acknowledge this. As the two ninja faced one another, silence descended upon the audience. Killing intent poured out of both of them instantly. A few people in the audience claimed to have witnessed lightning bolts darting between the two. The strain was on Naruto down in the arena. When it came to creating killing intent, he was still a beginner. Unlike Gaara and his various teachers, who could do it whenever they wanted, he had to get ahead of steam before he could even attempt it. Gaara had come up with the entire plan to make everyone nervous before the game. He claimed that the invaders would be prepared for the first move, in which someone would use sleep genjutsu to cover the entire stadium. However, it would be more difficult for the genjutsu, which was intended to calm everyone until they fell asleep, to work, not to mention simpler to detect and break, if the two of them were to produce enough killing intent to make the audience uneasy. Combatants ready. Hajime. Gaara crossed her arms and poured sand from her gourd into a huge fist. The fist lifted into the air, far above the stadium's walls, as though it had its own will. It surged powerfully in Naruto's direction, but he skillfully sidestepped the blow. There were cries coming from everywhere. The invasion was underway. The cage turned to Sarutobi in the cage's box. "Time to die, old man," the Sandame said. "Yes, it is time for you to die, Orochimaru," without even looking at the other man. A blue glow surrounded the entire booth as steel shutters slammed down over the only door in the open air window. "What kind of joke is this, Sensei? You are trapped in here with me." Sarutobi then vanished in a cloud of smoke, saying, "Only you have been caught. I have not. This room will be the last thing you ever see. Goodbye, foolish apprentice." He turned to his guards and yelled, "Break down the walls. A cage bunshin. Very well." Their response was, "We've been trying, Orochimaru. Sama. When we mold chakra, it gets sucked away." Orochimaru stopped, noticing that his chakra was being drained even though he wasn't shaping it. "I see. A containment seal combined with a chakra. Draining seal. My idiot former teammates worked, no doubt." A violent spasm sent one of his guards crashing to the ground, where he continued to futilely flail his arms and legs. Then he halted. Orochimaru removed the guard's disguise as he approached the body and knelt down. His spine tingled at what he saw. The veins were clearly visible, and the skin had turned ashen. "Damn. He's had his chakra completely drained away." Jiraiya deliberately removed the safety setting that prevents it from killing those under the effect of the seal. He heard another of the sound 4 fall victim to the seal behind him, and he noticed that his chakra was being drained more severely. He would take the longest to be drained dry because he was the strongest ninja in the room. Using a radio handset, he attempted to reach Kabuto but discovered that his signal was blocked. He was getting irritated and, dare he say it, afraid, when he realized that he was unable to hear what was going on outside. That might also refer to a seal or soundproofing jutsu. It appeared that Sensei was spending a lot of money on this. The room was likely airtight as well, given his and Jiraiya's familiarity. He was now deaf, blind, and mute, cut off from his allies, and his jutsu was useless because they had totally cut him off. They only needed to wait for him to pass away. Someone had beaten him. He screamed, "No," but no one outside could hear him. It was hell outside. Konoha had attacked from the front, while the Suna forces had attacked from behind Auto. The Auto Nin were being massacred while trapped between the two villages. The element of surprise and Suna's assistance had been crucial to the invasion plan. It was trouble without one. Auto was destined to fail without both. Naruto was covered in blood, half insane, and hyperventilating. At last, he had killed someone A5, to be precise, and was shocked by his actions. He would have been a sitting duck if Zabuza hadn't given him a crash course in the conditioning exercises used at the Kiri Academy. Sarutobi, Guy, and Kakashi worked to help him better handle the unavoidable fallout from his involvement in the invasion, while Zabuza had trained him to be able to overcome crippling pain and fear as well as the disgust at killing. He caught a glimpse of Sensei acting almost mercilessly out of the corner of his eye, moving in ways that, in Naruto's opinion, no man in his 60s should be able to. When Naruto heard a cry, he threw 2 kunai at an Auto Nin that was rushing toward him. They took him down by catching him in the neck and torso. The final Auto Nin fell after what Naruto now regarded as the most horrifying, terrifying 2 hours of his life. Both Konoha Nin and Suna gave cheers. As soon as it subsided, the senior Nin resorted to their familiar duties after an invasion. Chunin started to enter the village to assess the amount of property damage and fatalities inside its boundaries. Following suit, the Junin searched the village for any hidden Auto Nin. In addition to taking care of the Konoha dead, Anbu was supposed to dispose of the Auto Nin after searching their corpses for anything valuable or significant. The Suna contingent would transport prisoners to questioning and the injured to the hospital and relief stations. They would also take care of Suna's dead. On the bloody floor, Naruto collapsed to his hands and knees and started to retch, wishing he had something in his stomach to throw up. He looked up to see Sarutobi, who had a proud yet sad expression on his face, after feeling a hand on his back. "Come, Naruto, let's get out of here." Sarutobi quickly formed a familiar set of seals to help him stand, and then they vanished. They returned to the village on a roof that was intact. Naruto sat as if in a trance when Sarutobi gestured for him to do so. Sarutobi exhaled deeply. I sincerely apologize that you had to experience that, Naruto. If at all possible, I want no one to ever have to go through that. For the occasion of their student's first death, the majority of sensei prepare a speech or lecture. Such things have always seemed to me to be rather dry and pointless. I want to share a story with you instead. Sensei, no offense, but I'm not really in the mood. Please pay attention even though I know you're not. I hope this story will be helpful to you, as it holds some significance for me. It tells the tale of the first time I killed someone else. Naruto suddenly shook his head. I was roughly the same age as Konohamaru. At that time, the village was still developing. Our only line of defense was a fence that surrounded everything. The village was only beginning to be surrounded by the walls you see today. In an attempt to stop Konoha before it even began, a group of bandits and ninja broke through the watch one evening and entered the village. I was woken up by my mother's scream from downstairs. I rushed down to see her on the floor, a bandit standing over her with a knife in his hand. I grabbed the nearest thing I could get, a lamp of some sort, and threw it at the man. I missed him completely, alerting him to my presence. He grabbed me and threw me into our kitchen. He followed me in, intent on killing me. I saw a knife on the counter and grasped it. He laughed at me, standing there, trying to defend myself as best a scared 8-year-old could. He had a longer reach than I, and he struck. He laid my left arm open to the bone from the shoulder to my elbow. The knife in his hand the healed wound. He moved in close to kill me, while I was stunned by the pain. Right as he was about to deal the final blow, I swung my knife. I caught him in the neck, right across the jugular. He fell on top of me and bled out all over me. I was as covered in blood as you are now, and just as horrified. In a panic, I pushed him off and ran out the door, screaming my head off. Sarutobi stopped and recalled that night in great detail. I first met the brothers, as the Shodai and Naidame were known at the time. At that point, they stopped me, bandaged my wounds, and inquired about what had happened. They helped me to calm down from my hysteria and assured me that killing the bandit was the right thing to do because I did it to protect my family, myself, and everything I valued. They said this in front of everyone in the middle of the street. I didn't believe it at first, and I didn't eat or sleep for nearly 2 weeks after that. When they came to visit me again, they made me look at the reactions I received, and they were absolutely right. They walked with me around the village and made me look at the reactions I got, and they all looked sorry for what I had gone through, but none of them looked down on me. The other kids were a little more wary of me, but not too much. They told me again that I had been in the right, and that if anyone criticized me for taking a life in direct defense of what was most important to me, then their opinion was worthless. The knowledge that one could kill someone and still be a decent person was a life-altering insight. I had never thought about becoming a ninja until then. Being a killer as someone who took lives without hesitation or mercy was not what I wanted to be. I recovered almost immediately, and the brothers kept coming to see me, mentoring me, training me, and helping me grow into the man I am now. Does it ever disappear? It never really goes away, Naruto, my boy. That night still gives me nightmares. Other villages train their ninja to kill their hearts, so to speak, by suppressing their emotions. That is not and has never been supported by Konoha. We have a greater appreciation for life since we live with the consequences of our daily actions. Because we teach that a life should not be taken needlessly, Konoha is a thriving village that is full of life. I think that your clan also holds the fundamental belief that, even though a life must occasionally be taken, it should never feel normal. I understand that you're currently doubting your career decision, Sarutobi said, spreading his arms wide. Naruto, take a look around and see why we do what we do. At this point, Naruto had figured out that Heishi wasn't exactly the type for hugs and kisses, especially in public, so the dramatic change really drove home the Sandame's point. Naruto turned around and looked down, seeing families tearfully reuniting, and he watched Hinata and Hanabi rush towards Heishi, who instantly knelt down and swept them into a tight hug, none of which was his own. The sense that killing someone else has made you less than human will never really go away. However, it will improve with time, discussion, and other people's acceptance. I am confident that you can overcome this setback. Let's head out now, my boy. I need to take care of some long overdue business. Once Sarutobi dropped Naruto off at the Hokage's office and used a jutsu to put the boy to sleep, he returned to the arena, joined by Jiraiya, Enko, and 2 Anbu. Outside the cage booth, Jiraiya made a few hand seals, which caused the door and wall to stop glowing blue. Sarutobi then knelt down and pried loose a floor tile near the door, which had a small piece of paper on the underside, which he peeled off and gave to Jiraiya. He stood, made his own hand seals, and the steel shutters retracted. The bodies of Orochimaru and his guard were revealed when one Anbu opened the door, and Sarutobi hurried into the room with a kunai in hand. He moved straight to Orochimaru, removing the cage disguise, and thrust the kunai into his heart, twisting it and tearing it free. He then did the same to his throat, and finally, Sarutobi's hand hovered over Orochimaru's head, where it pierced the skull with a powerful downswing. The Sandaime wiggled the blade around inside, confusing the brain, before snapping the kunai at the hilt, leaving the blade inside the skull. Jiraiya silently handed him a large storage scroll, into which the body was sealed. After struggling to speak, Sarutobi turned and said, "I am giving you the responsibility of conducting the autopsy and supervising the body's destruction, Anko. For the latter, Jiraiya and I will be present to serve as witnesses." "Understood, Hokage. Sama, though I still wish I had been the one to kill him. I am adding this catch because I am aware of it. You can do whatever you want to him in the interim, provided that a complete autopsy is performed and that every single body part and bodily fluid drop can be identified when the body is decomposed by midnight tonight." Anko jolted to attention, saying, "Yes, Hokage. Sama, sir. I will begin immediately." With a giddy smile on her face, she took the scroll from the Sandaime's hand and ran out of the room. Jiraiya and Sarutobi left in silence, returning to the office to wait for the status reports and to console Naruto while the Anbu disposed of the other bodies. She hadn't expected the Sandaime to grant her permission to go hog wild on Orochimaru's corpse. Even the restrictions he had given her were more than enough for her. The bodies of well-known ninja were autopsied and destroyed in the interrogation department's hidden basement, which Jiraiya and Sarutobi visited that evening. Sarutobi summoned Baki to his office, where they informed the Wind and Fire daimyo of their intention to renegotiate the alliance and asked for their approval to proceed. Both agreed, and a time was set for the start of negotiations. They had decided not to wake Naruto as soon as they returned, instead starting to prepare for what they would need to do. Following the departure of the two daimyo, Sarutobi and Baki sat down and started formulating plans to establish a new mutual goodwill between their villages. The terms agreed upon were acceptable to both parties, and Suna would take on some of Konoha's missions while the village was being rebuilt. Baki and the Sandaime also started talking about the possibility of a joint village mission to eradicate Otto, depending on what the interrogators could get from the prisoners. The mission payments were to be split into two basic categories: the money paid to the village and the money paid to the ninja who took the mission. The Suna Nin would receive the full mission payment, while Konoha, as the village originally contracted, would take a percentage of the village's cut, leaving Suna with the remainder. Despite the estimated low death toll, Sarutobi had cleared Zabuza and Haku for active duty, waiving any remaining time on their confinement to the village under the pretexts of good behavior and service to the village. He was also very impressed with how quickly Haku had recovered, now that he was not on the run with Zabuza and could eat, sleep, and train regularly. According to some early reports, Otto Nin had died from a variety of cold-related causes, including severe hypothermia, extreme hypothermia, and even frozen solid. When the two finally arrived, Jiraiya and Sarutobi entered and discovered Anko sitting on a stool, massaging her neck over her cursed seal, and gazing at the autopsy table containing Orochimaru's disfigured and now nearly unrecognizable body. "What's wrong, Anko?" "No, Hokage. Sama. I suppose all I wanted was for the seal to vanish when the bastard passed away. Let's begin, shall we?" "All right. Where would you like to begin? Given that I didn't get in touch with you before I was prepared to demolish the body, this is actually Orochimaru and not a body double. I tested the summoning tattoo after comparing a blood sample and finding some irregularities. It was genuine, and although I wouldn't rule out him allowing a body to sign the contract twice to complete the disguise, it isn't typical of him." "You have a point," Jiraiya said. "Unless he was absolutely certain that he would always have total control, he would not cede authority or knowledge. Speaking of power and knowledge, I found some real goodies hidden on his body." Pointing to a table nearby, the two men saw 3 scrolls and a sheathed sword. On the inside of his cheek, the sword was sealed in a summoning tattoo. "It's probably the Kusanagi, based on my knowledge of swords, and it's covered in some really repulsive poisons." "The Kusanagi?" the men asked, their eyes widening. "Where did he find that, I wonder? How about the scrolls?" The Edo Tensei, the curse seal, and his immortality jutsu are all represented by the scrolls. They were kept in seals that were concealed in the tattoo of the snake contract. With a sigh, Sarutobi hung his head and said, "Damn. He completed those jutsu, then." Slowly, Anko nodded, "Yes. He most likely employed the immortality technique, which is what led to the anomalies. Take the scroll for the curse seal, Jiraiya. I want you to destroy it after seeing what new information you can extract from it. Along with the body, I want the other 2 scrolls destroyed. Are you certain that will help, Sensei? Yes, I do. Orochimaru's objectives revolved around these jutsu. If he left real copies of these 3 jutsu somewhere out of his reach, where someone could steal them and use them against him, I would be shocked. There may be fragments, but I doubt that additional copies of the finished jutsu exist. I understand what you're saying. Additionally, it strengthens our resolve to begin looking for his bases right away in order to make sure that nobody continues where he left off. Yes. Turn on the incinerator, Anko. We can begin destroying his work as soon as we destroy his body. The 3 shinobi most wounded by his betrayal stood around his body, silent, as the incinerator reached its maximum temperature. They lifted his body and threw it into the flames as one, followed shortly after by the 2 scrolls, which were nearly immediately reduced to ash. Finally, Anko tossed in the medical bags that contained all the bodily fluids she had drained from him. They closed the heavy door and watched the body burn. What a waste, said Sarutobi at last. It seems appropriate, I suppose, that he died in captivity rather than in battle, spending his final hours in agony and slow death. Only Kami is aware of the number of test subjects who perished in that manner. The 3 then departed, leaving the incinerator running to guarantee the complete annihilation of one of Konoha's most notorious traitors. Naruto headed for the Hokage's workspace. The village was rapidly recovering from the invasion, which had taken place a month earlier. The village's walls and the buildings nearest to them had sustained the majority of the damage. For Suna and Konoha, the death toll had been fortunately minimal. The fact that Naruto had never met any of them had given him a sick sense of relief. The talks were proceeding without any problems. The Wind Daimyo agreed to start hiring Suna for more high-ranking missions because they were prepared to give her another chance. He would keep increasing their funding and assigning them more missions if Suna kept up his good work. Naruto had a lot of free time because he was not involved in the negotiations. He either assisted with the reconstruction or engaged in light training during that time. Additionally, he discovered that he was spending a lot of time with either the Suna Genin or Haku. For his part, he was still coping with the consequences of his actions. He believed he had been ready for what had transpired, but carrying out the actual act threw everything into disarray. He might be able to advance more if he could simply leave the village for a bit. He arrived at the office door, knocked, and waited for permission to go inside. When Naruto arrived at Sarutobi's office, he was not by himself. There were also Shino, Shikamaru, Zabuza, Haku, and Baki, the Suna Genin. Jiraiya went through the window into the office. Ah, good, everyone's here. I thought you all could use a break from helping with recovery efforts, so I have a mission for all of you. Naruto gave a blink. Wasn't this exactly what he had been hoping for? Zabuza was the first to speak. What's the mission, Hokage-sama? With the ongoing recovery efforts and treaty negotiations, I haven't had much time to go through reports from the field. I recently had the time to do so, and discovered that a Konoha ninja out in the field has seemingly ignored the emergency recall orders I issued, the secret one issued before the invasion, and the public one sent out after. I want to know why, and given the ninja in question, it would be best that I go meet them personally. According to protocol, if I officially leave the village, I must be escorted by either a full Anbu squad, 6 Junin, 8 Chunin, or a combination. All of you will be accompanying me to my destination. Any questions? Shikamaru's hand went up. No offense, Hokage-sama, but isn't a mission like this a little much for Genin, even in relative peacetime conditions? That is true. I wouldn't normally consider Genin for such a task. However, Naruto has been on an acting Chunin mission for over a month and a half, which has been deemed a success, so he will be leaving this office with a promotion. The 5 of you, however, have been deemed worthy of promotion for your performance in the exams or during the invasion, and will also be leaving for this mission as Chunin. Congratulations to all of you. In stunned silence, the Genin exchanged glances. The 6 of you probably don't realize this, but this is a break from standard procedure. Normally, there is a mandatory instruction period you would be required to complete before receiving your vests, but I am willing to waive that in this instance, as both villages need the higher ranking personnel at the moment, and those with more experience are needed for client paid missions. Essentially, all of you have just gotten a field promotion. You will be given the necessary training upon your return. Is there anything else? Zabuza gave a nod. Yeah, I have some questions. First off, who's the ninja in question? My other student, Tsunade, and her apprentice, Shizune. Tsunade's temper means that only Jiraiya or I have a chance of speaking with her without the situation deteriorating to violence, and even that is a small chance. But still, I feel I must speak with her to find out why she has seen fit to not respond to a grand total of 3 recall orders. He received a startled silence from the seasoned shinobi in attendance, including Jiraiya. Unless they had a very good reason, they would be charged with treason immediately for not responding to even 1 recall order. Wait a second. 3? What was the first one? Jiraiya finally said. Following the Kyuubi's attack, one of my first actions upon returning to office was to issue a recall order. Tsunade didn't return at that time either, however, she at least responded to it by way of a letter delivered via summon. She and Shizune were in some remote village at the time. The village was suffering some rather nasty disease, and the entire village was to be quarantined for about a year and a half. The two of them were going to be there the entire time, and planned to spend an additional 6 months in isolation themselves, so they wouldn't start an outbreak. At that time, I investigated the situation, found them to be telling the truth, and accepted that to be a valid reason for them to stay put. As a result, I didn't list them as traitors. This time, I still haven't heard from her, and I am well past annoyed. What is your other question, Zabuza? Do we have any idea on a location? Jiraiya responded, no, we don't. She's gotten really good at staying off the radar in recent years. She gets plenty of practice avoiding people she owes money to. I've got a couple leads, but we'll still be hunting her down. In front of the 6 prospective Chunin, Sarutobi spoke, we'll meet at the East Gate at 6 tomorrow morning. We've got a lot of ground to cover, and I want to cover as much as possible. We've no idea who or what we will run into out there, so I want you all armed to the teeth. Pack for war and then some. If you can make storage seals, use them. Be warned, though, whatever you pack, you will carry. So I want you to spend the rest of today getting ready. He took a storage scroll out of a desk drawer. He opened the container and distributed 6 simple Chunin vests. In order to identify the wearer's village of origin and rank within specific groups, each village had unique insignia that were placed on vests. Even though they weren't obliged to wear them every day, the academy teachers each had multiple sets that were designed to resemble textbooks. Sarutobi saw an opportunity and said, the rest of you are dismissed. I need to speak with Naruto for a moment in private. When they were by themselves, Sarutobi got up and moved to the front of his desk. I wanted to discuss the changes to your training that will be made once your promotion is final. I know I'll have to be more responsible about my personal training. What else is there, sensei? Actually, I was referring to the training for your stated goal, my job. You have a good feel for the day-to-day routine here, and I know I can entrust you to take care of many of those duties if need be. Once you are officially a Chunin, I will be teaching you how to classify missions to their appropriate ranks, as well as assign the right personnel to them. Also, you will start attending the council meetings with me, not to mention the meetings with the department heads. This is all in addition to your regular duties as a Chunin, so personal training time may in short supply for a while. Do you understand? I do, sensei. I have one question, though. I'm not questioning your judgment, but how can I be ready for this promotion? I have almost no field experience. A smile spread across Sarutobi's face. Very good. You're learning not to blindly accept things. I was wondering if you would question me on that. The lack of experience is a valid issue that Heishi and Shibi raised when they signed off on your personal Chunin exam, one I had already plans for. I plan on remedying the situation by arranging for you to go on missions with Zabuza and Haku now that they are no longer confined to the village. You will be operating as a 3-man team most of the time. Okay. Well, better go shopping, then. I wonder how Shikamaru will take traveling under full wartime pack. My money's on, not well. True, it is a lot to carry, especially when we do not have a set destination or a timetable for when we will return, but the pack requirements I stated are standard for escorting a Kage or daimyo, no matter your rank or the fact that we are, hopefully, far from being defenseless ourselves. Now, I believe I have some shopping to do for this trip as well. The group gathered at the gate the following morning. The Hokage came with Heishi, Shibi, and Iruka. The younger ninja in attendance gave him a look and blinked. The majority of them had only ever seen the man wearing his office robes and hat. It was surprising to see him dressed nearly like a typical Chunin. The fire shadow stitching on his vest was the only thing that separated his attire from the typical Chunin uniform. Iruka smiled amusedly as he glanced at his 3 former pupils. I still can't believe it. Not even a year out of my class, and 3 of you are already Chunin. I wonder how the rest of your class will turn out. Congratulations. In unison, the 3 former genin said, thank you Iruka, sensei. And the Sandame said, is everyone ready? He looked at Iruka, Shibi, and Heishi at the nods. The 3 men were selected to cover for the Hokage while he was away from the village, saying, "I hereby leave this village in your hands until I return." Because of their background as clan leaders and council members, Heishi and Shibi were selected. In addition to his work in the Hokage's office when the academy wasn't in session, Iruka was a senior academy teacher and active duty ninja with administrative experience who wasn't affiliated with any clans, shinobi, or civilians. This was the first time that 3 people would cover for a single cage simultaneously, but Sarutobi reasoned that if he could split his daily tasks between himself and 2 clones and then spend the rest of the day doing whatever he wanted, then it would be sufficient to have 3 completely different people handle his work so that they could go about their daily lives. After passing through the gates, the Hokage and his escorts left the village and took to the trees. They took a break by a river at midday. Without any delay, Baki had his 3 charges begin obtaining water to replenish canteens. Seeing the 3 siblings collaborate so effectively was impressive. They had always been that close, as anyone who didn't know any better would have assumed. They started purifying the water for drinking after scouting upstream a considerable distance to search for clear indications that it was unsafe to drink, like an animal that had perished in it. Tamari used a small fire to boil the water, eliminating any potential leftovers, while Gaara used his sand to filter the river water, and Konkuro tested and treated it for toxins, both naturally occurring and otherwise. While setting up for lunch, the 3 new Konoha Chunin were observing their Suna counterparts. They nearly failed to notice Zabuza and Jiraiya approaching from behind and stopping while continuing to observe. Zabuza spoke in his typical rough tones as he turned to face them. "Impressive, isn't it? That right there is an example of why Suna is considered a force to be reckoned with, regardless of any economic problems." "How's that?" Jiraiya replied. "You're Chunin now, so this is something you'll learn eventually if you ever want to get very far in this lifestyle. Each ninja village is basically a business by itself, and each has its own attitudes and priorities that are designed to differentiate them from their competition and attract clients to them." For example, Baki and the Suna genin were listening, but they weren't slowing down their actions, and Shino was now showing signs of interest. Leaning against a tree trunk, Sarutobi grinned. "Well, limiting this little lecture to just the major villages so we can save time, we'll start with Suna. Any client who goes to Suna can be pretty much guaranteed that they will get professionals to do their job, even if it's a bunch of genin. With the other villages, you can expect genin to do rather stupid things on missions occasionally. Acting on impulse, leaving their post to get food or drink, or to relieve themselves. Not with Suna. With their lack of a large population, everyone depends on everyone else to do their job and do it well in order to survive. As a result, they don't have much patience for those who act without thinking, so even the newest Suna genin will often be more of a professional than Junin in some other villages. There's also their absolute loathing of people who are wasteful or gluttonous, but that's due to scarce resources." Baki gave himself a nod in agreement with the fairly accurate portrayal of Suna's mindset. He was a little taken aback by Jiraiya's tone of respect. Zabuza took over at this point, saying, "Next, we come to Kiri. Kiri's business model is rather simple compared to some of the other villages. Kiri ninja will do everything they can to accomplish their goals, regardless of what it takes. That is a major part of the conditioning at the Kiri Academy, and includes sacrificing our lives or the lives of others in a heartbeat, despite personal beliefs or the other person's involvement. Simply put, if you hire Kiri to destroy a bandit outpost where there are hostages, it will be destroyed, and if the bandits try and use the hostages as meat shields, Kiri will go through the hostages without a second thought." Jiraiya decided to move on after observing the new Chunin become a little uncomfortable with the idea. Kumo is even more unique. They are the village of choice for clients who want something done as secretly as possible. They are continuous innovators, have expansive labs and testing grounds for any project they may be working on, and are experts in deception and the cloak and dagger aspects of shinobi life. One of the primary reasons why Iwa and Konoha have never gotten along is because of their nearly diametrically opposed methods of doing things. If they are not paid extra, Iwa ninja will only perform the duties for which they were hired. First, time customers may find it a little annoying, but enough people find it appealing that they have plenty of business. How is that our policy's opposite? Konoha ninja typically perform the duties for which they are hired, but they also usually go above and beyond what is asked of them, sometimes even resolving the root cause of the issue that brought about their hiring. But not everyone likes it when someone from outside the company gets involved in things they don't have to. We were hired to do one task, and the rest would be handled by them. That brings us back to Konoha. In addition to what I mentioned earlier, we actually focus on attracting missions from people who wouldn't normally go to a ninja village. The average civilian, one who has never dealt with ninja and has only heard the generalizations about us, would be terrified. They see us as silent, cold-blooded killers, and would only make a mission request of us if it was their last resort. Yet, if they come to Konoha, they will be surrounded by shinobi who act like the kinds of people they're used to dealing with. Shinobi running around shopping, playing with their children, getting drunk in bars, laughing and joking, that sort of thing. We use our humanity to our advantage, instead of repressing it, so we appeal to a much wider customer base than any other village. It's a basic idea. Most people prefer to deal with people similar to themselves. The Sandame responded, "How was that, sensei?" "Very good, I'd say." The material was presented in a logical and factual manner, and the propaganda normally present in that particular lecture was kept to a minimum. If only some of the other people in Konoha who present information to me on a regular basis would follow that example. My job would be easier if I didn't have to separate the facts from their opinions for them just so I could make an informed decision. Baki followed suit. "I agree, Jiraiya. Sama, and may I say, I am impressed by the respect you show to rival villages. I cannot think of many other ninja who would do the same in your position. Most are too swayed by their village's propaganda." "Thanks. Always respecting your opponent was a lesson that was beaten into me, literally. Now then, let's eat. If we can leave within the next hour, we should make it to the nearest town before dark." The group arrived in the town before nightfall, as the Sandame had predicted. They located a hotel, checked into their rooms, and got ready to eat dinner. Just as Sarutobi was ready to leave, there was a shout. "Hokage! Sama?" Sarutobi turned to face Naruto, Shino, and Shikamaru. "Yes? What can I do for you?" "We've been thinking about what Jiraiya, Sama and Zabuza.san told us in the forest, and something doesn't really sit right." "Really? What?" "They said that Konoha attracts clients by not acting like stereotypical ninja, but like the ordinary citizen when off duty. Does that mean our entire village's way of life is nothing more than a giant PR stunt?" The Sandame exhaled. Yes and no. Konoha was founded with the belief that the best ninja village was one where the ordinary citizens would not need to fear the shinobi. At the time, the existing ninja villages were all run by tyrants who ruled through fear and violence. Once the village was formally established, we needed something to make it stand out. We had the option to either develop a general personality that could represent the village, like Suna or Kiri, or to choose to specialize in a certain type of mission profile, like Kumo does. The Shodai and Naidame realized that the beliefs that led them to found the village would make for an excellent way to attract clients, and the Konoha took shape from there. So while it is our main method of standing out, it has always been our way of living. So long as you are professional on the job, you can act as you want, within reason, of course, off of it. Does that answer your question? HMPH. I suppose it does. For someone who is against propaganda like you say you are, you sure know how to spread it. That is true, I admit it. It comes from years of dealing with political issues. However, my issue is not with propaganda, but with those who cannot recognize and keep it from coloring their thoughts, words and actions. That does make more sense. Thank you, Hokage. Sama. My pleasure. I'm glad to see that Konoha's newest Chunin are not the type to accept things as they are presented to you. That is a good trait to have, no matter your profession.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.